All right, welcome to the July meeting of council, July 18th. The summer's going more quickly than we, many of us anticipated. So we've got a decently sized council agenda here today. So we're going to open with the singing of O Canada, followed by a moment of reflection. And I'm going to look to the Deputy Mayor for the month of July, Councillor Kushner, to read the land acknowledgement. So I'll turn it over to our council coordinator, Evan McGinty.
Our home and native land, true patriot love, in all of us command. Carton bras et porter le paix, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
All right. Turn it over to Deputy Mayor Kushner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The land on which council meets today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. The territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many nations, Métis and Inuit peoples. Acknowledging this is a reminder that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous peoples.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And so we just got a bit of a mayor's report, and this is the final mayor's report before the Canada Summer Games are set to open on August 6th at the Meridian Centre. And as all of council knows, and many members of our community, it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to host the games here in Niagara. They won't be coming back. They come back to our province every 25 years. So the likelihood of many of us being here again when the games come around may be a very small opportunity. But for us here in the here and now, this is an incredible opportunity. The economic impact of the games themselves here in Niagara is a great opportunity for not just those in St. Catharines, but across Niagara. And then there's the legacy of the impact. And the Canada Games Park, the Walker Sports and Ability Centre, the Rowing Centre at Henley, and all the other investments that are being made across Niagara. This is really going to be a transformative change for our community, not just during the games where we get to see future Olympians, but also all the volunteers that are taking place during the games, all the volunteers who are giving of their time to experience the games, as well as after the games having these legacy projects, which for next generations of athletes and people who are looking to keep mobile in our community, the Canada Games Park itself will be a park for everybody. It's designed in a way to be the most exclusive sports and recreation facility, not just in Niagara, but in all of Ontario. It'll be able to host so many different venues of games, of sports, from lacrosse and hockey to volleyball and basketball, to track, indoor track, outdoor track, beach volleyball, sledge hockey. There's so many different sports and so many different opportunities for people to advance themselves of all ages. There is a health and wellness center that's also at the Canada Games Park. So when you take this $100 million facility and you break it down, the province and the federal government invested significant funds. City of St. Catharines, $10 million, and the City of Thorold, I believe, $5 million. And so for a $100 million investment, our return on that investment here in the City of St. Catharines is enormous. And so it's a great opportunity for us to celebrate, and looking forward to welcoming everybody to the opening of the games at the Meridian Centre on the 6th. There's also a torch relay that takes place on Sunday, July 31st. For those who want to watch those who will be carrying the torch, it starts at the FirstOntario Performing Arts Centre at 10 a.m. and finishes down the road at the Canadian Tire on Louth Street later in the day. This is happening across Niagara. This will be the final stop of the torch in St. Catharines on the 31st. So we're expecting a lot of people to come out and cheer on the torch. And be sure to get your tickets for a lot of the sporting action that's taking place. Meridian Centre is the host of the basketball. Brock University has the cycling. 12 Mile Creek has the mountain biking. The Henley has the rowing. And these are just the St. Catharines venues. There's many, many more. And we also have the track and field taking place in the second week at the Canada Games Park. You can get tickets at the Niagara 2022 website. There's also, the city has a 13 for 13, one of the many events to celebrate our country's sports and culture. This is taking place August 11th in downtown. It's free for anyone to come out. And there's a lot of free events that are part of the Canada 2020 Summer Games here. And check out the Niagara 2022 website for a full list of all the events. There's musicians that are coming from across the country. We have artists and athletes that are coming from across the country. So it's an exciting time to be here in St. Catharines, Niagara. And it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to celebrate the best of sport for youth here in our country. I also just wanted to touch on one other issue that we've been receiving a lot of calls and questions about. It's related to the amount of homelessness that we're seeing in our community. There's a number of encampments that we're working with through our community partners in the region. And it's a conversation that we're having with a lot of folks. But we have to realize that we're not unique here in St. Catharines to the issues that we're facing, whether it be addictions, mental health, people being rent-evicted. I had a meeting with Elizabeth Zimmerman last week from the YWCA, and the number of people that they're seeing who were housed 6 months ago, who are now unhoused because of rent evictions. You're starting to see that play into the increase in homelessness that we're seeing. So there's people out here who think this is just a St. Catharines issue. Yeah, it's happening across Canada, it's happening across North America. But I gotta say, I had an opportunity to attend a conference or a morning session with Ian DeYoung, who's one of the foremost thinkers on homelessness here in Canada. And couple of his comments resonated was that Niagara is actually a leader in helping to address those who are experiencing homelessness. That's not something you hear a lot, but here in Niagara we have agencies, Gateway and Community Care and YW, Bethlehem. There's a number of different organizations that are helping in addition to the region and the city. And I got to remind people, because a lot of people will just place the blame or point the finger at the city for lack of effort that's being put into this. We have our own city staff that are working as part of the Niagara Assertive Street Outreach Program. It's also called NASO. And this is an initiative that the City of St. Catharines through Council has put significant dollars into over the last couple of years. And it's working with people who are going out into the encampments and working with them to find gainful housing. Once that's accomplished, there's an opportunity for us to then again go in with our city crews to help clean up the sites. And as we saw last night with the downpouring of rain, people living in tents, it's a very precarious situation to be in. The sooner we can move them into housing, the better it is for them on their road to hopefully recovery. What we're also seeing is that if you see somebody who's in an encampment or unsheltered, you can call 211. And I've had to use this before. It's a 211. You just hit it on your cell phone number on your cell phone, and that directly connects you to a NASO team member. And that team member will take down all the information to ensure that those who are experiencing homelessness, there's someone who can get out there to reach them as quickly as possible. It's not easy to find a housing unit here in St. Catharines, Niagara. So I am asking is that if you are a renter or a rentor, if you do have rental property and you have an opportunity to provide rental services, we're in desperate need of units. And so I encourage you to contact Gateway and Community Sports Services at Niagara. That is the missing piece, because there are people who who want to be housed, but without a housing unit, our shelters are getting full, and not having space at shelters means that more and more people will be living in the rough. So these are very, very complex issues, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but when you're dealing with severe addictions and severe mental health issues, you need the complete wraparound service supports for those experiencing these issues, and you need them to be in safe places. And so Housing First is the place to go, is the way to go. And unfortunately, with what we're seeing with housing in Niagara, housing units are becoming fewer and fewer opportunities for housing. So just wanted to point that out, because we're seeing a lot of interest in this. We do have a website. The City of St. Catharines does have a web page dedicated to what the city's doing. So I encourage you, if you think the city is not doing enough, check out our webpage first, and it gives you an outline of all the work that we're actually doing. And then we can look for better and more targeted solutions as well as we move forward. I do know that Councillor Dawn Dodge, who was recently acclaimed to the board of AMO again, she'll be bringing this up at AMO with her delegations, as well as a number of our city councillors will be bringing up these issues. So these issues are not falling on deaf ears here in the City of St. Catharines or at the region, but we got to make sure the province is properly funding those programs as well, and that we can get the funding from the federal government to the local tier municipalities as quickly as possible to help address these issues. Speaking of federal funding, FCM did announce $98,000 for a Green Municipal Fund approval, and that's for a study to take place to convert the St. Catharines Transit's diesel to electric buses. Another great initiative to show as our city is moving towards a low carbon fleet and a zero carbon footprint here at the City of St. Catharines. As well, our summer concert series are back at the City of St. Catharines on Wednesday nights. So we had a July 6th kickoff, and there continues to be live music. July 20th is at Happy Ralph's, July 27th at Catherine Street Park, and August 3rd at JC Garden. So you can go to summer concerts at the St. Catharines website for more information. Niagara Jazz Festival is taking place this weekend at a whole bunch of different sites. Check out Niagara Jazz Festival for more information. And I just want to say thank you to Juliette Dunn and Peter Shea for all their work to bring this jazz festival to life each and every year here in the City of St. Catharines. We also have Emancipation Day coming up on the civic holiday weekend. July 29th is the raising of the flag at City Hall. Black-owned 905 will be performing downtown, or will have a market downtown, as well as on the July 30th, as well as a film screening downtown St. Catharines. Shad will be performing music, and on July 31st, an open house and tour of Salem Chapel BME Church, and August 1st, Emancipation Day. It's a great day for programming at Lakeside Park, including a performance by LMT Connection. And Rotary Rib Fest returns Friday, July 29th, Monday, August 1st in Montebello Park. And it's great to see Rotary Rib Fest come back, because all the funds raised at Rotary Rib Fest go back into our community. And finally, the Royal Canadian Henley Regatta opens Monday, August 1st at 7:30 p.m. at the Grandstand. There will be an opening ceremony at the Grandstand. You could watch from Rennie Park, and the races take place from the 31st of July to August 7th. So again, welcoming athletes from around the world back to the Royal Henley Regatta after 2 years' absence. This does show how many great things are happening in downtown St. Catharines and around our community throughout July and August. So it's a great time to be here in St. Catharines. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the city clerk, who's going to go through the amendments for the agenda before we do the approval.
So we have a change in the order of today's agenda, so that item 9.3, the report on the community benefits charge strategy, will be discussed following item 9.1. And the following items of additional correspondence have been received, and they've been placed in Council's SugarSync folder. 1, a confidential memo from the St. Catharines Downtown Association regarding vacancies on the board of the St. Catharines Downtown Association. Confidential memo from Corporate Support Services regarding complimentary information to Council Report number FMS 114-2022 PeopleSoft partnership with the Niagara region. Confidential memo from staff regarding item 13.2, Junior B. Falcons Lease, Seymour-Hannah Sports and Entertainment Center, and memo from Economic Development and Government Relations regarding all-around champion filming at Jones Beach.
Okay, thank you for that. And I need a motion to move and second the agenda. Councillor Sorrento, seconded by Councillor Littleton. And all in favor? Okay, that's carried. We have the adoption of the minutes that were included in our council package, and they are for June 27th. Is there any edits to the minutes? Not seeing any hands. A motion, Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor McPherson. All in favor? That's carried. All right. Any conflicts of interest this evening? Okay, seeing none. We will now go on to items have been requested to move from consent to discussion. So we do have, I'll turn it over to the clerk for the consent agenda with the pulled items excluded.
So the item that's been pulled from consent is item 6.2, CIP, evaluation of new applications and to rescind the existing approval. The remainder of the consent agenda includes 6.1, Financial Management Services Budget Standing Committee Report for the meeting of June 20th, 2022. Item 6.3, Planning and Building Services, the creation of administrative penalties for violations of the city's vacant building registry bylaw. And item 6.4, Legal and Clerk Services, Council Correspondence.
Okay, Councillor Miller.
Just sorry, I missed this. Can we, 6.4, number 1, can we pull and endorse that?
Yes.
Okay. And I need a mover and a seconder for the consent agenda. Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Garcia. And I'll turn it back over to the clerk.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor Littleton?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
And Mayor Sendzik.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Now we're moving into, we do have a couple of presentations publicly. And so with that, I just want to remind in council chambers in all municipalities in our country represent the seat of local democracy. The many acts that govern us understand the necessity of the collective voice when decisions are being made to grow our spaces, pass our bylaws, and seek opinions into very complex issues. We recognize the right of the majority to decide, the minority to be heard, and the public to have an opportunity to participate, and all participants to be treated with courtesy and respect. It is imperative that elected officials, citizens, and staff have input, and it is paramount that we listen to one another, question one another, but we do so in a way that never undermines any person's ability or their dignity in our council chamber. So we don't have a public meeting, no presentations, but we do have a discussion report, and it's the Economic Development Government Relations 2022 Niagara Grape and Wine Festival Fee-for-Service Program. And it's great to see that the Grape and Wine Festival is coming back in full force to our community after a few years of altered productions. And I'd like to call upon Dorian Anderson, Executive Director for the Niagara Grape and Wine Festival, and Tim Coons, Chair, to present today. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us. Great to be so early on the agenda as well. Thanks for that. Okay, good evening, Mayor Sendzik, council, staff, and to residents. I'm Tim Coons. I'm the chair of the Niagara Grape and Wine Festival for about the last 6 years, and I'm pleased to be here in front of you all again tonight. As you can imagine, running a festival during a time when stay-at-home orders were in effect, well, let's just say it was certainly a unique set of challenges that we faced. However, I'm pleased to be here in front of you saying that we are finally ready to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Niagara Grape and Wine Festival. And we couldn't be more excited to get everyone back together. We are the oldest and largest wine and culinary festival in Canada. We continue to be a significant community and economic driver for the city of St. Catharines and also the Niagara region. And perhaps even more importantly, our community loves the Niagara Grape and Wine Festival. And we've heard that loud and clear over the last couple of years in its absence. So I'd like to thank all of you for your unwavering support. Our board of directors, Mayor Sendzik, Brian York, all of our city councilors, and of course, Councillor Phillips, who sits on our board. You have all been instrumental in getting us to this position where we are today. And I definitely need to thank our incredible executive director, Dorian Anderson. Dorian, you have definitely been an incredible resource for us. You know, you have weathered the storm with us over the last few years, but it's been amazing to watch how creative you are and watch the incredible programming that you've put on over the last couple of years. So thank you, Dorian, big time, for your dedication and leadership. The festival is certainly in good hands with you at the helm. And with that, I'll turn things over to Dorian. She's going to run you through the exciting program that we have lined up for this year. Thank you to everybody, and I look forward to seeing you in the park in September. Cheers.
Well, thank you, Tim. It's always great to hear good things from your boss as you're about to start a presentation, so thank you very much. And I just wanted to echo my appreciation to everyone that's sitting in that room, and especially to the economic development team and the Parks and Rec team and the arts and culture team. We have had many discussions over the last couple of years. We've always been accessible and ready to help. So before I get started, I just wanted to say thanks. Next slide, please, Evan. And as we start, I wanted just to introduce to you the faces of the festival. Our board of directors has changed a little bit over the last couple of years. So this also, I believe, was in your package, so we won't spend too much time on it. But of course, we're thrilled to have the champion of the parade, Mr. Bill Phillips, back representing the city of St. Catharines. Brainstorming sessions are always more fun when Bill's around the table, so thank you so much. And a quick thank you to Tim, who will be ending his term as chair at the end of this fall festival in September. He's been amazing over the last 6 years and a joy to work with. And he will be welcoming in Ian Kowalchuk, who many of you know as the incoming chair starting on October 1st. But we did have some openings as mentioned. We had a public call out for directors, and we're very excited to have 13 amazing applicants. And then after a bunch of interviews, this is the team that we will be working with as we relaunch the festival in September. Next slide, please. So many of you know, this is the 70th anniversary of the Niagara Grape and Wine Festival. So while it was established in 1951, 1952 was the first festival. And I thought we would throw some of these images courtesy of the St. Catharines Public Library to remind us how far we've come. Also, it was good over COVID for us to remember the mission, vision, and values of the Grape and Wine Festival. And we really had a chance to sort of dive back into those while we had some time to think. And especially the values really sung true to me, collaboration, leadership, and innovation being the three that really kind of were our guiding lights as we are planning out the next phase of the festival. Next slide. So celebrating 70 years in St. Catharines, the festival has changed and evolved, has adapted as it's had to, and now we're looking to celebrate our return with an extended community-wide celebration that will span the entire month of September. We'll get into that momentarily, but just a reminder that as a founding partner, the City of St. Catharines, of course, has been an integral part of the success and the sustainability of the festival. We are currently entering our 4th of 5-year partnership agreement with the City of St. Catharines, with the 2022 commitment as follows: a $65,000 cash sponsorship that will cover a full 12-month calendar year. So it will also include ice wine and next year's summer festival, as well as the value in kind services to support the Montebello Park, Grand Parade, and Pied Piper Parade activities. Also, part of the relationship is that the line of credit that the City of St. Catharines co-signs for the festival is reduced $5,000 per year as this goes up. So we are currently sitting at $80,000, and that has not been touched. Even throughout COVID, we have not accessed that line of credit at all. Next slide. So what we learned over the hiatus, well, first and most importantly, we learned, or maybe relearned, how much our community loves the Grape and Wine Festival. We had messages streaming in over social media and email throughout the hiatus, asking when we could get together or if Montebello Park was going to happen. Even at the height of the pandemic, we had people wanting to see the parade. So there's nothing that makes you more excited to get back to work when you know you have a community waiting to see what you have to offer. It also reinforced what an important part of the community this is. It's a great way to reconnect or to connect families, friends, neighbors, and people who have moved away from the region to come back and celebrate their roots. So what we are looking to do now is to really take advantage of this sentiment and really use it for the greater good or greater community benefit. We realize how wide range our festival reaches, so we want to make sure that we're using all of that energy to give back. First, we will do, we're really focusing on local. From musicians to suppliers, we are very much using a Niagara first approach. We've always done this, but it's been especially focused this year. So you'll see that 90% of our main stage artists are from Niagara, 100% from Ontario, but all of the suppliers, the restaurants, everyone we're looking to use are local. We want to develop programming that engages local business, but not just in a marketing or community perspective. We want to drive economic benefit back to these partners. We also want to offer turnkey options because we know businesses are struggling specifically with staffing. So we're going to use our team resources to provide opportunities for them to benefit without having to invest a lot on their side. Also, we're expanding our programming to reach more consumers. So we're launching a VIP program we've never offered before, improved wine education offerings, more free family fun, and then also from a sponsorship perspective, some entry-level sponsorship programs for small business. We had a lot of businesses that want to be part of Grape and Wine and contribute, but our previous levels were out of reach, so we've adapted. And finally, we want to leverage our social media audience to assist other festivals and associations. We started with the In the Soil Festival. We have a 60,000 person subscriber base to our social channels, so we help to promote their festival, and we're looking to do that through the rest of the festivals this summer. Next slide, please. So we're back in Montebello starting in September. So you can see by my face, I'm a little excited. So we will be, the last 2 full weekends in September, we will be in Montebello Park, Friday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays. All of our favorites are back, so up to 100 VQA wines, 15 local culinary partners, the Harvest Lounge is back, the Family Fun Zone, and as always, with free admission. 50 hours of live local entertainment, and then some fun new things. We're launching an In Good Spirits wine lounge in the historic Rose Garden. We've got such amazing spirits partners and distillers, but there are many that produce grape-based spirits. So as part of Grape and Wine, we are going to use grape-based spirits to make some amazing cocktails and add to the fun and excitement in the park. Initiated by COVID, but now it just makes good sense. We are getting rid of tokens, and we are introducing a cashless or touchless payment system, which will help get rid of lineups, reduce congestion, make it much easier and more convenient for consumers and also for our vendors as well. It allows our restaurant partners specifically to have more flexibility with pricing, making it much more easy for them to be profitable. New park seating areas, we're removing the large tents crammed full of tables and doing more socially distant and charming seating spaces. And as mentioned, the new Friends of the Festival VIP program that will offer a real VIP experience, a VIP entrance, sparkling wine upon arrival, a concierge to help with ticketing, all of those extra perks. We do have some other cool programming, brunch in the park on Sundays, and a VIP cabana program, but they're pending Reconnect grant approval, which we're hoping will be coming any day, but we are patiently waiting. Next slide, please. The Grand Parade is back. We are excited for the 70th anniversary to have 70 different performance groups. Some of those are our porch parade communities. As you may remember, during the first year of the hiatus, we took the parade to our neighborhoods and invited neighborhoods to show their spirit. So 5 of those communities will now have an entry into the Grand Parade as it parades through downtown. And as well as a new program, we're launching a community spirit program. So we're going to allow the public to submit entries, and 5 different spaces have been reserved, whether it's families, neighborhoods, sports teams, high school alumni groups. As long as they're providing us with a compelling way of entertaining the crowds, they will be eligible for one of those 5 spaces that we'll be announcing through on social media. This is all part of our way of thanking the community for how much they love our festival. Next slide, please. New for this year, we are adding some feline fun. Felines? Canine fun. So the Pied Piper Parade will expand this year to include puppies. I'm sure everybody knows that they fell more in love with their pets or got new furry friends over the COVID break. We wanted to find a way that we could expand the Pied Piper Parade to make it a little more fun, and as importantly, to make to bring a little more media attention to this event. Traditionally, this gets left behind a little bit, so we thought this would be a really great way to revitalize media interest in our park this year. So we are working in partnership with the Lincoln County Humane Society. We are going to divide it into 3 sections. So there's kids only, families with dogs, and dogs with their owners in the back of the pack to make sure everyone's comfortable and safe. And we are working through with the Humane Society the proper way to do pre-registration and pre-approval of our puppy friends to make sure that we have best practices in place to keep it safe and happy for everyone involved. I'm very excited about this. As you can see, these pictures of the puppies are from previous parades, so people were doing it before we made it official. Next slide, please. A very exciting initiative for us, especially in the downtown core, is Grape and Wine Month, which is the entire month of September. So in celebration of our 70th anniversary, we are launching Grape and Wine Month as an annual program that starts this year and will happen moving forward. The concept being that the entire month of September will be painted purple with grape and wine programming every single day. Obviously, we will not be managing all 30 days of programming. We've reached out to our partners, and it started in consultation with the Economic Development Team and the St. Catharines Downtown Association to launch an opportunity for any kind of business, arts, or community group to get involved by offering something that is grape or wine themed. It can be ticketed, it can be free, as long as it's compelling and interesting to the community. We're happy to include it in our formal program of events and put our marketing power behind it. It's free for participating businesses. They also retain all of the revenues. The whole point of this is to get our program larger, to expand to a wider audience, and also to drive direct benefit back to hospitality, tourism, and arts partners through the power of the festival. Next slide, please. Just to talk a little further about partners. So to this point, today, actually, we have 25 corporate partners or sponsors confirmed. And then the rest of this list are some of the amazing people that we have been and continue to work with throughout the Niagara community. We are finding that everyone's excited to be back. Some of these, for example, the Meridian Center, we're not going to be able to do any activities currently with them, but we are looking to do something for 2023, so those relationships are ongoing. But everyone else on this list is involved in an active part of the fall festival programming, and we're very excited to have all of them joining on board. We also have been doing some great work with the St. Catharines Public Library, who will be involved in the parade, as well as the Family Fun Zone, carousel players, and a lot of other really cool groups as well. Next slide, please. The benefits to the city. Well, thank you very much, as I mentioned, for your continued support. Through that, St. Catharines will remain the home of Grape and Wine and the focus of all of the activity for the Fall Festival. We will be doing 90% of the programming. I think that's conservative. It likely will be closer to 95 in the city of St. Catharines. The remaining programming will be held in wine country in Niagara-on-the-Lake and out in the Niagara Benchlands. Over 100,000 consumers will visit downtown St. Catharines throughout the month of September. We're estimating at least 30,000 tourists. Please excuse that typo. And we are, from all of our research, seeing that most festivals and events are seeing a 25% increase in attendance. So the 100,000 number was what we hit in 2019. So I would say that that's a conservative number. 75% of our marketing spend at minimum will be focused on the city of St. Catharines and the events happening here. Any live media opportunities or media hosting will happen in St. Catharines through our partners. And we already have over 50 St. Catharines-based businesses, artists, and associations confirmed to participate in this year's Fall Festival. We can't speak about it because the grant hasn't been announced yet, but hopefully, all going well, we'll be working with Colleen and the amazing team at the FirstOntario Performing Arts Centre to launch a very cool new introductory evening event for the Ice Wine Gala in September, the Cool as Ice Gala, which is very much focused on visual and performance arts and inclusivity as a very unique event. I don't think there's anything like it in the region at this point, so hopefully we can come back and update you once we get the grants announced. Next slide, please. So just before we summarize and go to some questions, just a couple of key dates to keep in mind. Obviously, September 1st is when Grape and Wine Month will begin. We haven't yet done our large media release because we've been thinking that any day we'll be hearing about the grant announcement. If we don't hear by the end of this week, we will be doing our formal media release early next week. But Grape and Wine Month starts September 1st with daily activities happening throughout the entire month. Our popular Discovery Pass program, which is the wine touring program at our partner wineries, will happen for 3 weekends in September. Opening night at Marsdale Park on September 16th, and we have some pretty exciting things in the works with that, as doing a sort of a VIP opening night reception at 5 p.m. which you'll all be made aware of as soon as it's finalized. Montebello Park, the last 2 full weekends in September, the parades, and then as I mentioned there, January 2023 and summer 2023 programming. We will be entering into a strategic plan late this fall that's going to help us finalize what our summer programming will look like next year. But the funding from the city does cover January and next summer, so I wanted to make sure to include that on the key dates. So you knew that I was aware of that and confirming it. And next slide, please. On behalf of the board of directors of the Grape and Wine Festival and me personally, thank you so much for your ongoing support. We truly couldn't have done it without you. We starting our festival this year in the black. Some very difficult decisions made by the executive and the board. Tim's guidance and Bill have been very helpful to make sure that when we're launching this year, we're doing it from a strong position and we're able to launch the right way. And the City of St. Catharines continued funding throughout the hiatus to make sure that we could be in a position to come back to Grape and Wine and present to the community in a positive manner. So thank you so much. I can't wait to see you in the park. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anderson, and thank you, Mr. Coons. Great presentation, a lot of excitement there. Any questions from council? Is Councillor Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, and thank you to Dorian and Tim for all their hard work over the last few years. It has certainly been a unique time. My question is, in regards to, has the Grape and Wine, is there any partnerships that have been set up with specific Metrolinks to provide transportation to perhaps those coming to this festival from the GTA?
I actually have a call with them on Wednesday at 1:30 to talk about those types of programs. The other thing regarding transportation, as we know, we do run into issues getting people from train stations to Montebello Park. Currently, one of our new partners is CAA Niagara. They have come on as one of our premier level sponsors, and they've recently acquired Niagara Airbus. So one of the programs we're working on with them is to work on shuttles that can get people from train stations to Montebello Park. That just sort of kind of round out that traveler experience if necessary, as well as potentially doing some regional shuttles to, downtown Niagara on the Lake and a couple other key locations to help people get in and out of Montebello Park safely.
Well, that is fantastic. Just further to that, will you be connecting with popular GTA blogs and advertising sites like, say, BlogTO in our city, just out of curiosity, just because I do know they are popular to the people who do live in the GTA?
Yes, we actually have a great relationship with Narcity specifically. When we launched the My Wine Life exhibit a couple of years ago, the Narcity team came down and did a feature on it, and they were very supportive of the Snow Globe program. So I've been speaking with Madeline, and she's just waiting for me to give her the go-ahead. So they're very involved, and we are working with BlogTO as well. So our plan is as soon as we can get things announced, we're going to roll out. And we work with the City of St. Catharines as well as the TPN to sort of look to bring some influencers in and see what we can do as far as getting those bloggers involved. Absolutely.
Thank you, and wonderful work as well.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Miller?
Thank you. Thanks, Dorian and Tim. This is fourth year of asking the same question of what the status of the inclusion of seasonal agricultural workers is in the festival this year.
And I have an update for you. So it is something that we've been working on since I've been back in February. And so just as I think Councillor Miller knows, I have family connections to the farming community, and I have worked quite closely with a lot of these growers myself. We reached out to 4 or 5 different organizations that have these programs in place. From our perspective, we aren't really in a position to take on a program of that scope because we are just me and one other part-time staffer at this point and summer staff. So we want to make sure if we're going to do something, it's going to be done the right way. We reached out to 5 different community groups. And honestly, we only had one respond back to us, which was the Southridge Church. You notice that they're in our partnership listing there. So we wanted to have a group that has a program that's proven to be successful. They've been operating for over 10 years, and we're going to be working with them to have a level of inclusion in the festival this fall. We've asked them to come up with some ideas and come back to us so that we can really do something that's going to be effective and is also going to benefit the temporary foreign workers as a whole. A lot of the ideas that we had thrown around were difficult to implement because of the distances that all of the workers are coming from. We couldn't provide reliable transportation for all of them, and we couldn't ensure that they all would have equal access to any activations in the park. So our thought at this point was to work with a proven program for this year as we're returning, and then look to build on it from there.
Thank you. Certainly appreciate it and the outreach you did. And like you said, hopefully it's a building block to something further. It's obviously 70 years of Grape Wines, 56 years of that program, the Seasonal Agricultural Workers Program. So they've been excluded, maybe not intentionally, but certainly have been excluded for a long time. So hopefully we're getting there, and every year we can increase their participation and our acknowledgement of them. So thank you. And again, thanks for your work on that.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Seeing no other further questions, just a clarification on the in the park programming for for knives, forks, and plates. It's all compostable, and I believe that's what you were doing prior to COVID. So I just want to compliment you and your team on making sure that you're following the city's directive on in our parks having having compostable non-plastics that are being able to be used.
Absolutely, as well as the water bottle ban as well. So we have the water wagon, the regional water wagon on site, and everyone does receive cups when they come in, so they have opportunities to use the water stations.
That's amazing. Okay, I need a motion to receive the presentation. Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Townsend. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. We'll go into the staff recommendation for the report. So I need a mover and a seconder on that. Councillor Porter, Councillor McPherson. And in terms of any discussion on the report in front of us, seeing none, I would like to acknowledge Director of Economic Development and his team for helping to bring this together, this funding agreement together. And as Ms. Anderson has indicated, the relationship between the two, both economic development and the Grape Wine Festival, is a very strong one. And I know Sabrina Maselli has been actively involved on the board, as well as Councillor Phillips, who has been very helpful in conveying the different changes that have been taking place over the last little while due to the pandemic. So I just want to acknowledge everybody's assistance there. And with that, I'll call the question.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Littleton?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
And Mayor Sendzik.
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, thank you very much. Looking forward to the September kickoff of the Grape and Wine Festival. We're heading into 9.3, which is the community benefits charge. And that was a presentation was made by Mr. Gary Scanlon from Watson and Associates Economist. And he had made the presentation at the last meeting of council. So he is here just to ask any questions. Prior to us discussing the staff recommendation that will be put on the floor, I'm just going to look to Director Kitse and Adam Smith for some introductory comments.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council. At its core, community benefits are intended to improve the public experience of cities in proximity to high-density development projects. Due to legislation that was initiated in 2020, the method of capturing community benefits has now changed, primarily in an effort to be more predictable for the development community so that financial contributions could be estimated earlier in the site development process. In accordance with legislation, community benefit charges are intended to work in conjunction with, but cannot double dip, with development charges and parkland dedication fees. Community benefit charges can ensure that municipalities have additional tools and resources needed to build complete communities and support the capital costs necessary to accommodate anticipated growth. On June 27, Council approved the Community Benefit Charge Strategy, which sets out the eligible projects to collect CBC fees for, including but not limited to matters that improve public realm, policy studies, including a housing action plan, and investment in cultural spaces and programming, and many more. Adam?
Thanks, Tammy. So the report before you tonight is for the approval of the bylaw to implement the CBC strategy approved by council last month. There have been no changes from the draft bylaw provided at that meeting, and it includes the maximum rate of 4%, which was justified by the strategy, an effective date of September 1st, and only the mandatory exemptions required by the Act. The report also outlines the implementation of the bylaw, including the notice requirements, the appeal period, and the valuation process. I'll just close out our introductory comments by reiterating that community benefit charges provide a more predictable method to determine financial contributions than the former Section 37 bonus zoning provisions of the Planning Act, and that the CBC bylaw is important to ensure that service levels for services that previously were ineligible for growth funding, in particular those cultural services that are important to community building, can be maintained without overburdening the existing property tax base. So, thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Just looking for questions of council. We do have the staff recommendation on the floor, which is the approval of the community benefits bylaw effective September 1st as presented at the last meeting of council. Councillor Littleton, seconded by Councillor Porter. So it's on the floor now. Councillor Garcia, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to Director Kite. I sat on the Development Charges Task Force, so I understand the process quite well. And I know that no double dipping is allowed, as to use that phrase. My question is, my understanding from the task force was that the new legislation was also intended to replace Section 37 benefits that municipalities could charge. In the past, as far as I know, St. Catharines has not taken any advantage of Section 37. So my question to Director Kite is, therefore, are these community benefits, when they are charged, would be something extra that we have not received before? Is that correct?
Through the chair to the councillor, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garcia. Councillor Williamson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the director or the presenter. I did ask about the possible inclusion of environmental benefits, either climate change adaptation or climate change mitigation, things like adding geothermal or higher R-value building envelopes, those kinds of things. And the impression I got that they were not included in the legislation. I just wondered if there's any further research done on that.
Through the chair to the councillor, on June 27th, staff did present the community benefits strategy, and at that time had addressed what we could and could not include as eligible projects. To my understanding, we have not done further work in that regard. If Mr. Scanlon can add anything to the conversation, that would be helpful, but my understanding is where we landed on June 27th is where we landed.
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer through the chair. That's absolutely right. I don't think we have necessarily a program that we can evaluate. And I think what we indicated was if there's further work undertaken by the city that we can consider, then obviously we would look at it relative to what the legislation would provide. So when there's further work undertaken, be more than happy to consider that.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Williamson, maybe as an amendment, you can request that at AMO we at least bring this up with I believe the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and see if we can at least add it to their radar of including what I think is, you're very correct on that, if we can include some of the climate change initiatives to build in. So if you want to make that amendment, I think it'd be friendly from those who made it, and we can do that as part of AMO for this year.
Thank you. That's a good suggestion indeed.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Scanlon, are we the third or fourth municipality to pass this bylaw today in Ontario?
I haven't checked as of the end of last week, so through you, Mr. Mayor, but I think you're in probably 5th position.
Thank you. I just want to commend staff because this was a change to provincial legislation, and I think there are dozens and dozens of municipalities going through some of these efforts right now are getting on board, and I think it's commendable that we're the 5th to do this. This is a great source of revenue for our city for things like public art and affordable housing study, and it's certainly revenue that we need, and it does encourage intensification, which is also good for the environment. So thank you to staff for getting this done and moving through all of the development charge studies that we're doing.
Well said, Councillor Porter, and seeing no further questions, I will call a question on this great initiative.
Councillor Littleton?
Yes.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
And Mayor Sensik.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay, thank you very much, as Councillor Porter said, to staff for all the work that they've put into this. And I won't build on what Councillor Porter has indicated, but this is great to see that we're number 5th in the province in adopting this. Moving on to 9.2, Financial Management Services, PeopleSoft Partnership in Niagara Region. And if I can ask Director Sullivan. Okay, so I'm just going to change something in my notes. I just gave someone a title. Sorry about that, to the clerk. Christine Douglas will be doing introductory remarks regarding PeopleSoft, and then we'll go into the staff recommendation.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. The report in front of Council this evening is a continuation of the process that commenced with the intake 1 and 2 of the provincially funded Audit and Accountability Fund and was validated by E&Y in their business case, which supports the city implementing a new ERP system through a shared services agreement, as it provides both operational benefits and cost savings in comparison to implementing and supporting a similar system on our own. This is the next phase in the council approval process for the city to enter into an innovative partnership with the Niagara region with the shared service agreement for the city's ERP and implementation plan work. This partnership represents a transformational opportunity for the city, and it also has the potential to be viewed as a model that can be duplicated within the region for both ERP and other services. The city's financial systems are in need of replacement, which have been previously identified by the city's auditors in our audit finding reports. There are a number of benefits for the city moving forward with this agreement, such as the modernization of the city's systems and processes, including some automation, the improved awareness and transparency of financial information. Other benefits are listed and identified in the report. Partnering with the Niagara region provides the ability for the city to benefit from the implementation and user experience and the ability to use their existing systems at the region, infrastructure and staff structure to replace the city's existing financial software, which is over 20 years old. More details are provided to council in the confidential memo with regards to the city's financial system and its limitations and potential risks to the corporation. The proposed shared services will replace most of the functions of the city's existing outdated software and provide new functions that are much needed. It does not replace everything. Our water, utility, and property tax billing are two modules that are not typical options in modern ERP systems. The project schedule includes both pre-implementation and implementation phase, commencing with the request for proposal for the engagement of implementation consultant to commence immediately upon council approval, with the ideal PeopleSoft system going live on January the 1st, 2024. The success of any project is largely reliant on ensuring it is properly resourced. City staff have worked with E&Y, received feedback from the region on its own experience to identify the expected resources required for each phase of the project. These amounts are included in the capital budget pre-approval request of the $4.22 million. This amount exceeds the forecasted future budget request by $1 million. The total capital budget request for the project also exceeds that of the E&Y business case of approximately the same amount. However, the E&Y business case did not allocate the cost to the city or the region for the pre-implementation activity. This increase will ensure that sufficient resources are allocated to the project and that the project can be fully implemented. Following the conversion of PeopleSoft, there will be costs that will continue annually, including licensing, maintenance, and support costs from the region. With the new modules, it is expected an additional staff member will be required in financial management services in order to provide expertise in each of these areas. The new FTE will be funded through the recommended 2023 capital budget, and starting in 2024, the annual sustainment cost is approximately $800,000, including licensing, maintenance, regional staffing, and city staffing requirements. City staff are recommending moving forward with the replacement of the city's financial system. Staff believe that the prudent and fiscally responsible way to move forward is through a shared services agreement with the Niagara region. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my opening comments with regards to this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Douglas. We do have, I just want to get the motion on the floor. Councillor Sorrento, and seconded by Councillor McPherson. So the motion's on the floor. I got a question from Councillor Sorrento and then Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Director Douglas. I believe I read in the report at some point, Director, that there was an immediate savings of about 3.6.
Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor, with the city partnering with the Niagara region for this initiative, there would be a net present value of savings of $3.2 million.
Thank you. And as I read the report, I can sense that there is a sense of urgency, Director, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director. How important, how crucial is it to get this program approved tonight?
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor, it is critically important for staff to receive council's support of this recommendation this evening. We have received audit finding reports from our auditors for 2 previous years, and our system does have some risk with regard to it, so it is critically important for us to move forward with regards to this particular project at this time, hence the reason we're requesting the early budget approvals.
Okay, and one final comment, Mr. Mayor, through you to the Director. You mentioned that water and the tax will not be affected by this new system. Will things remain normal in terms of billing, excuse me, in terms of billing for the residents coming from the city?
Through your worship to the councillor, with regards to the city's water and tax system, last fall, council approved the city moving forward with the replacement of the city's tax system. It is the back end of the city's tax system. The bills that are sent out to the residents, they will not see any difference. It is the back end processing that we are updating with the new system replacement for tax. With regards to the city's water system, we are working in partnership with a service provider to develop a new water billing system as well.
I'll just say this, Mr. Mayor, this is a great report, and this is a great example of how we can continue to partner with other orders of government that already have systems in place that we can piggyback on and take advantage of. I'm in full support of this, and it's a great report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sorrento. Well said. I'm going to go Councillor Williamson and then Councillor Porter.
Thank you. I concur with Councillor Sorrento's comments. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director Douglas. Will this help protect us against cyber attacks and calls for ransom, that kind of thing, that we know are legitimate and potentially expensive costs to the taxpayers?
Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor, the updating of the city system with a much more modern and supported tax system, or financial system, it will provide additional security to the city.
Okay, that certainly is a very important aspect of this, and I'm supportive and understand the necessity of this. My only concern is that for a system that's supposed to be make life easier and more technologically efficient, we're adding another full-time employee. Is it possible that this can be done with a temporary person through the transition period as opposed to adding a full-time forever kind of a position.
Through the mayor to the councillor, based on past experience, when it comes to updating systems and replacements, it is critically important that we adequately resource the project. At this time, based on the knowledge that we have, we anticipate needing this resource. However, as we move down the continuum of this implementation and we improve our processes, we may identify additional staff resources that will possibly be reevaluated, but at this time, it is staff estimation that we need a full-time staff complement.
Thank you very much, Director Douglas.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Director Douglas, we talked in the past a couple of years ago about stormwater management fees, and it's potentially a future project. Do you know anything about PeopleSoft being used for stormwater management billing in other municipalities, and do you think it's implementing this is will be a helpful step if we were to move in that direction?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I'm not aware at this point as to whether or not PeopleSoft has been utilized for a storm water management billing system. As we move forward, we do have stormwater management on our work plan to look at developing. We have some preliminary work we need to do before we're ready to go down that road. Based on my understanding of stormwater management plans, there are a couple of different options that we can proceed with regards to billing. There is an option to include it as part of the tax billing, and there's also the option to include it as part of the water billing. So as we get the background information complete and move down that, we will look at the options. I can say that PeopleSoft does have a accounts receivable invoicing billing system with it, and so if we needed, that could be something that we could potentially look at with regards to this particular investment.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to support this. This was identified as an issue when I first got on council, and I think this is very crucial to support, and it really concerns me that we have such old software. So this will truly help us to be a more innovative city if we move forward with this, and I commend staff for the shared services. It just makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Seeing no further questions, I just want to thank the director and her team for pulling this together, and I will turn it over to the clerk for the vote.
Councillor Sorrento?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Littleton?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
And Mayor Senzik?
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, well done. Okay, so we're going to go on to the item that was moved from consent to discussion, and this is the Community Improvement Plan for 2020, CIP evaluation of new applications and rescinding of existing approval. We do have Edward, John, and Aaron Waxman, who are the proponents for 7 St. Paul Street West and 7 Maguire, who will be available for questions if asked, but there is no formal presentation. We do have a delegation from the executive director of St. Catharines Downtown Association, Rachel Braithwaite. And prior to adding her as a delegate, just looking for a motion because she was a late addition, Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Littleton. All in favor of the addition? Okay, that's carried. So she will present first, and then we'll have a motion put on the floor, and then we'll have a brief update being brought forward by the Director of Planning and Building Services. So I'll turn it over to Rachel Braithwaite. Welcome back to City Council. You've become a regular on our council agenda, which is great to see because you're part of the Downtown Association. So welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing my last-minute addition. I do very much appreciate that. I have great respect for your time and don't want to waste it, so thank you. So obviously I'm here to talk about 7 St. Paul, as that is in our downtown and will have a huge impact on our downtown. It is the entranceway to our downtown and the gateway to the city, something that is obviously, we want to make sure we have a very good building there that really showcases our city well. And, as such, I'm speaking in support, obviously, of the CIP for this property. I do believe that it does warrant it. I mean, based on the criteria created by the city and approved by council, it does meet that recommendation, coming in at 67 points. So there's a number of reasons we personally believe this will be beneficial to our city. For example, the intensification. This will not only help the city, but it will also help our downtown businesses who will benefit from this increased clientele. We also appreciate all of the stormwater management and climate change adaptation programs that they're implementing as part of this program, especially the geothermal heating and cooling, which I believe is the first for the city and something that we should definitely be supporting because that is the future for our city. I also feel that, I know affordable housing is an issue in our city, and I know this project doesn't specifically have affordable housing. However, the reason we have such a huge need for affordable housing is the lack of supply of housing. Thus, we need to support intensification. We need to support the additional supply of housing, be it affordable or not. And so I would encourage this support for this development. As mentioned before, this technically should be approved based on a criteria that was developed by city staff and council approved. And I really feel that if we do not approve this based on that, then we will be giving developers, they will be losing faith and trust in our city because we've told them that they can get the CIP based on these criteria and then we renege it. And I really do believe that will be very detrimental for future developments in our downtown and in our city as a whole.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Braithwaite. Any questions of Councillor Miller?
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Braithwaite, as always, for joining us. Just part of the component of this project is a large office space and retail space. Can you give us an idea of what the vacancy rate for those spaces are downtown currently, approximately?
Good question. So I don't have specific numbers on me. I know there is a larger vacancy rate for office as opposed to retail spaces. However, it depends on the type of office. So if you look at XL North, for example, just across from City Hall, they are over capacity, so much so that they're having to expand and build more offices. So that model is more of a hot desk formula and more of a shared office co-work space. So I think it would depend on the type of office that would come in to that development as to how successful it would be. I think also a new build is much more attractive for new office space coming in. So I would say don't let the current vacancy rates for office space deter your support for the program.
Okay, thanks for that. And certainly this would be a huge win for downtown, getting this many people down there. I'm just curious, is there any concern of projects like these? We have another large story coming, hopefully, to James Street at some point, increasing the cost of rental rates, lease rates, things like that for businesses down there because of the higher demand, which again is a good thing, but.
Good question. I would say that, this will add supply, right? So it's all about that balance between supply and demand. I would also argue that, the intensification is good. And I think by increasing the number of people able to shop and support our local businesses, it means that their income will thus be increased. And also their staffing challenges may be decreased because they have an increased pool they can pull from. So I would say that there isn't as much of that. I mean, gentrification is always a challenge and a concern, as the mayor kindly alluded to earlier, especially with rent evictions. I would argue that is more a challenge with regards to older properties being renovated as opposed to a new build. And slightly off topic a little bit, but one thing I would say that would be very beneficial, because I know parking is always a big challenge and concern, is we would love to see, improvements such as increased bikeability in the downtown and walkability and transit use in the downtown. I feel those will mitigate the challenges that may come from that increased intensification, and something that we would love to see more of in our downtown.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Okay, seeing no other further questions, thank you, Ms. Braithwaite, for your presentation. Very much appreciated. And we will now put the staff recommendation on the floor. That's moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Porter. And then we'll have a brief introductory remarks by the Director of Planning and Building Services. And we also have, as part of the staff team, Ms. Claire Semple, and she is the CIP coordinator, the one who has been responsible with writing the report. So turn it over to the Director, Kite.
Thank you, Mayor Sendzik and members of Council. The city's community improvement plan was approved by this Council in November 2020. Contrary to a false narrative circulating in the community, it is imperative that our public knows that their property taxes are not being paid to developers. The core of the Brownfield Tax Increment Finance and Tax Increment Finance programs is that a percentage of the property tax increase be rebated for a period of 10 years after project completion. This would occur when and only when a project receives approval after being evaluated against a core set of evaluation criteria. That criteria, approved by Council, focuses on brownfield remediation, mixed-use development, heritage restoration, affordable housing, sustainable design, density generation, and location within priority neighborhood areas such as our downtown. As the very foundation of a CIP is increased investment and assessment, an incentive will always ensure a positive tax revenue for the city. For 2022, the CIP approved by Council established an intake period of January to April. During that time, the city received 2 BTIF and 1 TIF complete applications. Those applications were then evaluated on a weighted project evaluation system that formed part of Council's approved CIP. For further transparency and accountability of the program to the public, the evaluation criteria and how the applications were scored are published in Appendices 2 and 3 to this report. Of the three applications, staff determined that the development proposal for 7 St. Paul Street West and 7 McGuire Street should be recommended for Council approval. This development proposal includes a mixed-use building, 37 stories in height, at the gateway to our downtown. It includes 3 retail units, 1 large office unit, and 478 residential units, bringing an estimated 860 new residents and 27 jobs to our downtown priority neighborhood. The proposal also includes substantial climate change adaptation technologies such as geothermal heating and cooling, electrical vehicle charging stations, and a green roof to assist with stormwater management and reduced heat island impacts. Furthermore, a landscaped public space will be constructed on the corner of St. Paul and Westchester Crescent. To facilitate the proposal, an estimated $2 million of environmental remediation work will be required. With these positive attributes, the application scored favorably within the evaluation system approved by Council in November 2020. It is staff's opinion that the Brownfield Tax Increment Finance application for 7 St. Paul Street reflects the goals of the city's CIP, particularly in the areas of environmental remediation, scale of investment, density generation, mixed use, sustainable design attributes, and location in the downtown priority neighborhood. The city also received CIP applications for development projects at 60 Vine Street and 47 Hastings Street. While both development proposals have merit, neither application met the CIP minimum threshold criteria to qualify for an approval. As such, staff could not recommend either, as they did not conform to Council's approved CIP. Lastly, the report seeks for Council to rescind a previously approved tax increment finance incentive for 14 to 20 Queen Street, should project activity not commence within the next 3 months, and that previously awarded incentive be redirected to the city's affordable housing reserve in conjunction with Council's direction in this regard. This evening, staff are here from PBS, and the applicant is available to answer any questions that Council may have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that and appreciate the detail on this. Councillor Garcia, the first one up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that I do have an alternative motion if this one doesn't pass. And if we're going to discuss this one first, I would ask that we address the first one separately.
Appreciate that. So we are discussing this one on the floor. So if you want to speak to this at this point in time, Councillor Garcia, this is the time to do it. If not, we'll split the motion and we'll vote on them separately as requested. Okay. Okay, so Councillor Garcia is finished. Councillor Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the, my question is, what would the entry level cost be? What is the starting point to purchase one of these units? I know it's not really public knowledge, but is there an entry point? What is the average for a one bedroom kind of in this building?
So we have Mr. Waxman, who's just turned on his screen. So Mr. Waxman, if you want to give us an estimate of what you're projecting.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thanks for having us here. We're very excited about this project and helping to stimulate future growth in St. Catharines and the Niagara region. We think it's a great opportunity and a great place to live. In terms of the entry point, for price at this project, it will be a higher end building. Compared to a lot of the aging stock that exists in the St. Catharines market. That said, we're well aware of market trends, and we're looking to attract a broad demographic of tenants and owners to the building. So there will be smaller units that will allow for a lower cost entry point into the market and allow for younger families and young workers to be able to also potentially live and own in the downtown, and then use that as a springboard for single family homes. And as we all know, the increase in supply of dwelling units is the best way to offset the housing shortage that exists in so many markets across Ontario. But that was a long-winded answer. The short answer is there will be a number of smaller units and bachelor units that will have a entry price point that will allow for some affordability. I won't call them affordable units, but there will be some affordability in the smaller units.
Councillor.
Thank you. And through the mayor, I mean, the average one bedroom right now in Southern Ontario is about 520,000 entry. You go into the Toronto area, it's significantly more. Are we looking ballpark for a one bedroom? Can we say approximately 400,000 to 500,000? Can someone get in? Is that that seems like the standard entry right now based in Southern Ontario?
Sorry, is that a question for me?
Yeah, that's for you, Mr. Waxman.
I wouldn't, at the end of the day, when we go to sell this product, we're going to try to be as expedited as possible to get to construction, get to building this project. But, as we all know, the economy and the market can change quickly. It's changing quickly right now. And depending on cost and depending on the market, that's a moving target. So I don't want to commit ourselves to an entry point, but I think, yes, that at that price, in terms of the entry point of the smaller units, would be an accurate estimate at this point in time.
Thank you for that. So significantly well below what you'd find in the GTA. I'm very interested in the geothermal and the environment, the green initiative that is attached to this development. Can you talk a little bit about what the vision is with that?
The vision is that we've been working now for a number of months and done a significant amount of due diligence, both with our environmental consultants and with Subterra Renewables, who will be our geothermal provider at this site. And it will be a full-scale geothermal system from for the entire building. So it will be it'll be the largest that we've implemented, but we're confident. We've done all the work. The geo availability on the site is great. So you know, it's very exciting. It's a way of the future, and it's a way to obviously help keep costs in line and cost increases in line, as you know, as tenants and owners are experiencing increased costs for oil and gas supplies. You know, this is a great way to offset it, and a great way to hopefully over the long term keep the costs of living in line for the tenants in our building and for the residents of St. Catharines that will be living there.
Thank you. My last question is, essentially, you've mentioned it's going to be one of the first of its kind. Why St. Catharines of all communities? What was the decision? Obviously, the location is beautiful, but you know, when you hear things about the, you know, our climate change emergency and this type of technology, why St. Catharines?
I guess, to be honest, it's not why St. Catharines. It's more of a timing thing. We've been doing our due diligence and trying to get a comfort level with geothermal, because obviously you put in a system of that scale for that many units, it needs to work. We need to have 100% confidence in the system. And I would say now we're at a stage where there's been enough case studies, enough buildings locally in Ontario and nationally and throughout the US that we're comfortable with the technology now. So I think it just happened to be a great coincidence that, you know, when we're going to be going forward with this project, it's also a point in time when we are finally fully satisfied and feel that geothermal is safe for us to implement operationally and economically. So we're ready to go ahead. And it's kind of we're going to be doing our next 4 projects all geothermal. This will be the first one, though.
Very exciting. And my final question is, if you just talk about the vision with the public space that's going to be attached to this development, that's going to be a significant add to our community, especially in the downtown core. What is the vision for the public space?
We are still working on that, because we're finishing a couple and working with staff on a couple of how the building's going to integrate with the streetscape. But there's a couple different of the park areas that'll be POPs, like privately operated public spaces, and we will be they'll likely have restaurants and patios that'll be included in that. We're considering, and this is not final, we're considering some water features and things that will provide a special kind of element. And in addition to that, it'll just be we'll try to tie together some modern attributes along with the kind of the classic attributes and feel of the St. Catharines downtown. So I can't speak to it exactly, but I'm sure in the next 30 days or so we'll have a very developed picture that will clarify. But it will be the park spaces and the integration between the building and the streetscape. We're being very cognizant to try and make sure it flows really well and is something that will increase the pedestrian experience of the downtown. So
perhaps a splash pad. Thank you for your presentation and for explaining that and providing some context.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. I got Councillor Dodge, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Sorrento. Councillor Dodge, you're up next.
Oops. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Townsend sort of touched on a lot of what I was going to ask as questions, so I do have a comment. It's great to see that these green initiatives are coming forward. This is absolutely something that, not only myself, but at the AMO board that we are looking into. Perhaps you could maybe elaborate, like I actually have a geothermal myself, so I understand it quite well. And I know that the initial cost is quite heavy. And then as time goes on, it kind of pays it back itself. In this installation, would this be a vertical installation? Do you know?
I'd have to pull my files. I'm not a geothermal expert though. When you say vertical, Edward might be able to speak to this too. But sorry, when you say vertical, it will all be like we'll be drilling down all the way to bedrock to access it. So the system will, in that sense, be vertical. But we'll be drilling the 48 meters it is to bedrock in that location. So
That's great. Can you maybe elaborate a bit on the green roof? What is the plan for that?
I know we will be, have plantings and have a green roof. In terms of the exact plan, that will also be part and parcel of our landscape architect's plans that will be included in our site plan application.
Okay. And can you tell me, is there any other initiatives that are green that, perhaps haven't been reported here that you can share with us?
In terms of green, we are looking at all of our sites, both in terms of social responsibility and economic responsibility, all possible green candidates. So we're looking at solar and things of that nature, but really the big winner that has the largest impact is the geothermal solution. So that's been the focus in the green roof, but we're not excluding any, but I would hazard to say that the two main ones are the ones we've talked about, the geothermal and the green roof.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, if I may ask one of Director Kate, I'm just wondering if this is approved tonight and the project moves forward, what assurances do we have that the green initiative will be put into place?
Through the chair to the councillor, should council approve the BTIF application this evening, it will be followed up with an agreement between the city and the property owner. And of course, none of the payouts exist until such time that the project is completed.
Okay, thank you for that information. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dodge. Councillor Williamson?
Yes, I'm also very pleased to see the green initiatives. The director of the Downtown Association, the director of planning, also mentioned sustainable design, but we're talking about a 37-story tower here. My read of the literature suggests that once you reach about 10 stories, every story after that is another 3% addition to energy costs. Hopefully that's offset by the geothermal program. But in terms of the suggestion that like the taller you go, the more environmentally friendly it is, I think that's a misnomer. Mid-rises and missing middle idea are what a lot of people are talking about, both in terms of environmentally being sustainable and being livable. So it's good to see the green aspects to this, but we also have to consider the fact that there are heights beyond which it becomes less environmentally friendly. And that's my statement on this.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Garcia, I guess when I asked if you wanted to speak on this, I misinterpreted your silence, so I think you want to speak on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, or do you want me to speak when we vote on that separate clause? I can do it either way.
No, we're doing it because once we separate the clause, everyone will have spoken, so this is your time to have the floor.
Okay, thank you. So, first of all, I want to say that I certainly fully agree with Ms. Braithwaite in terms of the impact of the downtown. I think from a business and urban planning perspective, having lots of more housing downtown is certainly the right direction to go. What I disagree with is why we need our taxpayers to subsidize that. This is going to be very profitable. The proponent just mentioned that they will be high-end units. So I certainly support having the building there, but I cannot support spending $5.76 billion of our taxpayer money in rebates for profitable, highly profitable housing. We have said before that we want to focus on remediation and affordable housing, and remediation here is minimal, and affordable housing is non-existent. So,
point of order. Can I just have a question, just through the mayor to Councillor, I guess, Garcia. Can you define what affordable is under your purview? I'm just trying to. Because we just understood that they're entry-level units. Can you explain what your affordable, what is?
Councillor Townsend, through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think it's it's up to me to define that, but certainly the planners have definitions that we use, for example, with the building.
Okay, Councillor, just when you do come back, because okay. I think it's on our end with the technology. So, Councillor, are you frozen again? Oh, it's on your end. Okay, so when Councillor Garcia comes back on, we'll just ask him to finish off. We'll start where he left off on the affordable housing piece. Evan, can you send a note to him and get him to log back in? Oh, you're there. You are. Councillor Garcia just froze for a good minute there. Are you back on?
I am on, but can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. So can you just go back about a minute into what you were talking about, and just because you were cutting out?
I don't know whether for you, Councillor Townsend, heard my answer. I said that it is up to the planning department to define what affordable housing is, but that we clearly have definitions of affordable housing, and they were used, for example, for the building on Geneva, that where a certain percentage will be affordable, some social, and some market housing. And to me, the answer that the proponent gave is that there will be smaller units that will be selling for a lower price than the larger units, obviously, but it's still market pricing and market housing. They are not affordable housing by anybody's definition, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I'm not here to debate that. The applicant and the assessment by the planner, and the planner does not just say that there is no affordable housing component. So I'm not, this is not my point. So because there is no affordable housing component and the remediation is minimal, I'm just saying I cannot possibly support providing all those funds, taxpayer subsidies to the owners. I do applaud the project they want to make, and I hope they build it, and they're going to make piles of money without us giving them all that money. And one last point I would make is that what the planner department has recommended over 10 years would be $5.76 million. If the region matches that, which they normally do, that would be $11.4 million. So in other words, the applicants would be getting 10% or more of their total cost from taxpayer subsidies. I think that's wrong, so I will definitely not support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garcia. We'll go to Councillor Kushner. Just before Councillor Kushner, if we can go back to Mr. Waxman, what is the projected value of the entire build of this project?
It's going to be probably, with the way the market's going, close to 200 million.
Okay, 200 million. Okay, just wanted to get that number out there. Thank you. Councillor Kushner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a very impressive proposal, which without doubt will have a very significant impact on both the downtown and the city. But the concern I have is with the amount of the tax rebate. I'm looking at the summary, and I see the eligible project cost to be 135, and now I'm hearing a figure of 200 million.
Yeah, based on what Mr. Waxman had talked about with increasing costs that they're seeing, that's what they're looking at right now.
Okay, in our staff report, do we not have 135 million?
Correct. I'll go back to Mr. Waxman. I think he can provide clarification. The number obviously is changing, but I'll go back to Mr. Waxman.
Yes, the number is changing, and those were, I think, some of the eligible costs and costs. I'm speaking about the also the finished value of the product. So there's a lot of different line items that were considered here in terms of the cost of the project. And obviously, as I've said before, you can take a snapshot of any project every project was a lot more profitable 3 months ago and selling for more money, and we're selling for less now, and our building costs are continuing to increase. So I can't speak to where they are, but I can tell you that all the line items that were represented in our due diligence that were provided to the city were at the time the cost per line item estimated for this project. Anyway, and just if it's okay, I don't want to interrupt Councillor Kushner, but just to respond to Councillor Garcia, would I be able to do that? For 1
No,
second?
unfortunately we can't. I appreciate that. Unfortunately we can't. This is a council discussion right now. Councillor Kushner?
Thanks.
Okay, the remediation costs given to us by our city staff would now be different, or would it be the same? What is the remediation cost of the property?
I'm going to go to Director Kitte, and just in terms of staffing approach here, I think these are, again, we're a snapshot in time, so we can anticipate that they're going to shift with the market conditions. But Director Kitte, in terms of your experience with these?
Thank you. And through the mayor to the councillor, on Appendix 3 is the project evaluation summary. And at that time, we had undertaken our evaluation based on an estimate of eligible project costs, which was $135 million. Today, we're hearing that costs are rising. That's not surprising. And there's also a difference between eligible project costs and total project costs. So what we've received and what we've evaluated is indeed on the more conservative end.
Okay, and the remediation costs?
So the remediation in the report, and if Ms. Semple wants to clarify what the remediation is?
Through the chair to the councillor, the remediation cost based on the information provided by the applicant is $1.98 million. Just to reiterate Director Kitte, there is a significant difference between eligible project costs, which is outlined, that's the $135 million, and total project costs, which is what I believe the applicant mentioned, being the $200 million.
Okay, so the remediation cost is 1.9 million, and the reduction in the tax would be how much per year?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it's not a reduction in tax. The way that it is rebated is we take 80% of the increase in tax. The tax that we're receiving from this property will never be lower than it is right now, and we will still be tax positive at the end of the day.
No, I do recognize that, but the fact is that with the tax rebate, they would be paying less tax. So how much is the tax rebate per year?
So it'll be based on the property tax assessment at the time, and then the rebate would be based on the increase between what is currently being paid and the top end of what the MPAC assessment would be that would be applicable to the tax. So whatever that is, Councillor, that's where the rebate would be. No net loss to the taxpayer.
Okay. No, but the fact is, Mr. Mayor, with the tax rebate, we would not be getting that tax revenue. And my question is, will the rebate be based on the figures that we have, or will it be based on the new estimates?
So I think Director Kitte can answer this one, because this is where it comes back to everything. The project has to be complete with all submitted receipts before any rebate is calculated. Director Kitte?
Yes, that through the mayor, that's correct. If you're looking for more specific numbers, I may defer it to Claire or Margaret, but I understand that the difference would be $573,000.
Okay, that's based on the current figures, but the agent indicated that cost would be much higher. Does that mean the rebate would be much higher because the additional tax revenues would be that much greater.
Through the chair to the councillor, as part of the 2020 CIP, we have adopted a 5% variance cap. So estimates, should it drastically increase from what you're being presented to today, cannot increase more than 5%. And I have that number, should you wish.
If I can just add through the mayor, the incentive is based on the assessment increase, not the total project cost. So it's the assessment increase that has that 5% variance. It doesn't matter what the actual project costs increase. That doesn't cause the incentive to increase.
Okay, and the assessment is conducted by the province, is that correct?
By impact.
By impact.
Correct.
Okay, the concern I have, Mr. Mayor, is the amount of the tax rebate per year when the environmental cost is only 2% of the entire cost. So I'm very uncomfortable in supporting this. And if there's a amendment to reduce the amount of support, I would certainly support this project going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Sorrento, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Waxman. Mr. Waxman, how long have you been working with staff on this project from the time you submitted your first application to this point today?
We've been working with staff for, probably a little over a year now, about 15 months, I would say.
15 months.
I had some, to go beyond that, we had some preliminary meetings and discussions on this site and have met with staff as far back as 3 or 4 years ago on this site. And to be very honest, and so that, because some people are throwing around some facts and figures that may not be completely correct, we decided not to proceed with this site at that point in time and with the development because it was not a viable site to develop economically because of A, the environmental contamination, and B, the soil conditions on the site, which require a very significant infrastructure underground. And this site, the development costs on this site overall, including the environmental, but also due to the soil conditions, are well north of $10 million in excess of what they would be on a site that sat on good, clean soil. So it's not just that $2 million in environmental costs, but we've looked at this a number of times, and basically it was our decision that at this point in time, and with the availability of the CIP and with kind of a motivated city staff that was really proactive to kind of look at what could be done at this site, we decided to proceed. But it was not as easy. It's not going to make as much money, or hopefully it makes as much money as Councillor Garcia thinks it's going to. But it's a very difficult economic equation, this site. But we are looking forward to breaking ground in St. Catharines and to being the lightning rod that your downtown needs to really help St. Catharines be the next great urban environment in Ontario. But that's, again, another long-winded answer for you.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director Kate, is the CIP evaluation just based on one item, and that would be remediation, or is it based on quite a number of different items that provide an aggregate score?
Through the mayor to the councillor, council approved a set of criteria that includes numerous items, and they can all be found in Appendix 2 to the report, and then Appendix 3 shows how those individual items were, of course, scored, and then the aggregate score, which took us to 67 points and the basis of our recommendation for approval.
Okay. And a final question, Mr. Mayor. It was mentioned throughout the presentation that there is a lot of misinformation about the CIP floating around in our community. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director Douglas, very quickly, if you could just give it to the public in basic terms, there are some people that think that this is some kind of a handout, tax coming from the taxpayers. Can you just give us your expert explanation as a professional financial person, accountant, as to what the CIP is, how it works? The Coles Notes version, please, Director.
Thank you, through your worship, to the councillor. With regards to the CIP program, the CIP program, when 2020 plan was approved by council, it included a funding formula. There is an amount included in the annual tax levy budget for the CIP program. This particular applications, they fit within that application. CIP amounts are paid to taxpayers as a refund of their taxes paid. They need to pay their taxes for the year, and then the taxes are repaid to them based on the approved CIP by council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One final question. What are we collecting in taxes now? I think I missed it in the report on this property.
Through the mayor to the councillor, with regards to this particular piece of property, the current assessment is $1 million, and I believe it's $11,000, but perhaps Claire can confirm that, but I believe it's $11,000 currently paid.
Big jump between what's proposed in the report and what we're collecting now. Mr. Mayor, when are final remarks?
You're not getting a second round on this.
Very good. I'll just say this. Mr. Mayor, we as a council resubmitted the CIP to our staff. We as a council approved it. We had a public meeting, which was held over at the PAC, where we engaged the public, okay? We've got a housing supply crisis, all right? I don't understand why this report is even being pulled. I feel personally that we're interfering with staff's work. Now, I understand we get the final say, but we gave the criteria, we set everything out, we approved it, and now all of a sudden, for whatever the reasons are, we're pulling this. This to me does not make any sense. Now, should it be the will of council that we deny the staff recommendation tonight, what message is this sending to everybody? Not only investors, but everybody in this community. So when I have to make a decision, I ought to look and see, how does this benefit our community? Does it benefit our community? Absolutely it benefits our community. It's providing a certain number of units, over 400 units, which is going to cause underlying movement for additional units to become available. It's going to increase the tax revenue that's going to come into the city exponentially, which is going to help kind of stabilize taxes. Okay, it's going to be a new revenue source. We have 3 other major projects going on downtown. We've talked about revitalization, and I think one of the key things is to get people downtown, and this is exactly what this project is going to do. So, I'm a little upset that it was pulled. I don't understand why it was pulled. Like, you either trust staff and believe in what they're doing. I mean, we gave them the policy. They're following the policy. The policy is in the report. I don't understand it. I just don't get it. But I'll tell you this. I am going to be supporting this because it's good for the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sorrento. So we got, it looks like everybody is listed to speak. You're going to go to Councillor Harris, Councillor Littleton, Councillor Miller, I'm going to assume is going to put his hand up. Councillor Porter, so we'll go around the table. Councillor Harris?
I just only have one thing. We talk about added revenue and things like that. The only way we're going to get added revenue is by actually doing something. Right now, it's kind of nothing against skateboarders, but it's pretty well a skateboard park. So if we want to do the right thing for St. Catharines, let's just get it done. So I'm going to be supporting it. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. If we all can be as succinct, that'd be greatly appreciated. I'll go Councillor Miller.
Thanks. Just a question to Mr. Waxman. Thanks for attending tonight. I guess the purpose of the CIP ostensibly is to alter or change projects that are going to happen already. As we know, our control is pretty limited in this situation. Could you maybe touch on how the existence of the CIP has impacted this project, either its vision or its coming execution or anything like that?
Yeah, well, it significantly impacted our decision to go ahead with this project because, as I said earlier, so I'll try to be more succinct. There's north of $10 million in outside of the usual pro forma cost to deal with the land conditions and soil conditions at this site. And that's environmental and structural, not just environmental. But the availability of these CIP funds was basically made or broke our deal to advance this site, because basically on a pro forma basis, we have $10 million of extra land costs here to deal with them. So whether that's a cost up front or a cost on development, we have $10 million in excess costs. So we need some way of offsetting that in order to make the project viable. So this was absolutely critical to our decision to proceed. We're very excited about proceeding, and I think everyone wins. We get to offset some of those extra costs, and at the end of the day, as has been discussed, the city's going to have increased taxes, increased direct and indirect taxes. The city's going to get more money once we're built and constructed, and not just from our project, but from the influence our project has on a broader tax base and tax revenues for the city. So anyway, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you for that. To staff, the definition of affordable, I believe, in our CIP, and this can be maybe to Ms. Josipovich or maybe to Director Kate, is a rental rate of around $1,300 a month for one bedroom. Is that accurate to say?
Through the chair to the councillor, the CIP includes an affordable housing definition that's around rental, including 30%. So 30% can change. In terms of affordable housing for ownership, we would defer to the CMHC definition.
In a project like this, in our planning, would condos and rentals be possible side by side in a single building like this?
Through the mayor to the councillor, no.
So in the CIP, we're basically for the cost of what's affordable for price. We actually don't really have that defined anywhere. Is that it's dependent on what CMHC defines?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the CIP only includes definitions for affordable housing for rental. At this time, the applicants have indicated that this building would be a condominium tenure. What we have heard from the applicants tonight is that some units by size and design will be more in the attainable threshold.
Yes, I'm curious who those are attainable to, but that's a conversation maybe for another time. Is it aggregate? Our CIP right now, we identify around 8,700 households in core housing need?
Through the mayor, that's correct. It's according to Niagara Regional Housing Statistics.
And how many of these have we addressed through our CIP 2 years in?
I don't believe we've had any of the affordable housing units come online yet. I would just comment that our 2020 CIP is still very young. We've only had a couple intake periods, and a lot of the kind of legacy that comes from a CIP is really seen over decades, not over 1 or 2 years.
Fair enough. Just a question in terms of the scoring. The value-added piece, this project received a 7 for the remediation, I think the geothermal, the environmental remediation, and then a 4 for the public space. How are those numbers? Because on our sheet, it's just sort of out of 7. So how are those numbers arrived at?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I can speak to that. It is assigned on a sliding scale. Points are available to projects that include components above and beyond requirements in the that would normally be required in the development process, as outlined in the zoning bylaw, official plan, transportation master plan, building code, etc. Components requiring a larger financial investment are typically rewarded higher in the point system.
Okay. I guess the one thing I want to say, how the program works seems to be there's ongoing confusion, intentional or otherwise. But I just want to highlight one aspect, and maybe this can answer Councillor Sorrento why $5 million amount of money like this is discussed. When we build large buildings like this, or large buildings are built, there are new costs to the city, and the fire department's obviously a significant part of our budget. We need to train firefighters for high rescues, high angle rescues, things like that. So that's just one example of how our budget goes up. When more people are living here, we need to spend more money on property taxes. We collect that money through the increased assessment and then spend it. If we don't collect that money from the new owners, we collect it from people who are paying property taxes currently in the city. Whether that's fair or not, I guess is up to each of us to decide. But again, that's one example of our increased costs. I think the difficulty I have with projects like this, when we have projects like Pleasant Avenue and others, and people say to us, well, I sure hope there's affordable housing in there. And we say, no, there's not. There's something really we can do about that. We can try to incentivize it. But it's not up to us, as Mr. Waxman gets to choose, and that's his right to choose whether there's affordable housing or not in these projects. But I do think it's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow for people to then say, we're offering a rebate, if that's what we want to call it, in addition to not providing a single unit of affordable housing when we have 8,700 households, that's households, not people, in the city of St. Catharines who can't afford where they live. We don't have an adequate year-round shelter here, let alone adequate transitional shelter. So I do think we need to be careful about where we're prioritizing our spending on housing. I think the idea that increasing the amount of housing available is going to lower the cost of housing is a myth pushed by developers. As we've seen, our house increase in housing in the last 20 years has significantly increased as housing prices have significantly rise. Actually, luxury condo projects like this tend to increase the value of real estate and make it more unaffordable to live here. So while I'm excited to see this project, this $200 million project, I cannot foresee why we would subsidize it to the tune of $11 million. And that's just how I feel about it. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. And just in terms of the Niagara Regional Housing number, that's for all of Niagara, because you just said...
It's St. Catharines.
8,600...
No, there's two numbers. One's for Niagara, and it's much higher. 8,700 is just St. Catharines.
That are
in our
CIP. On the waiting list?
Yeah, in our CIP.
Not on the waiting list. As chair of Niagara Regional Housing, it's 87 is across the region in terms of households that are looking at 16,000 people, 87 households. So it's a regional number, and just in terms of the other perspective is really, and this is just because I'm on the chair, so I just want to.
But okay, I'm just saying, page 47 of our CIP says 8,700 number of households in core need wait list for housing.
Not on regional housing list though.
Maybe.
So it could be core need, but not on regional housing.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
The one issue on regional housing that we're struggling with is that there's people who are actually in regional housing that can afford to move into attainable housing, but because we don't have enough stock, they actually can't, they're still in social housing. And that is becoming an increasing problem. So we don't even have the ability for people to move who have gainful employment, they've built up equity, they can move into either a rental or a housing unit that's market rent, and they can't even do it. So there's a whole complexity to us, but you are correct. Like, I'm not debating with you, and just there's a complexity here that we have people wanting to get out of social housing into an asset purchase potential, and they can't even do that either. So we're in a hard situation, and I think that's the point you were trying to make as well. Councillor Littleton is next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear what my colleagues are saying, and I think the conversation over the last couple of years has moved more towards the affordable housing portion of this. But when we set up this CIP and we approved it, and I can't remember if it was unanimous or not, there's not just one section of it. And I think that to continually come back to it's not this one section, but yet it scores in the other sections is not a fair argument, just simply because we didn't say this one section has to be met or the whole thing falls apart. And so, and the other thing too that my comment, for that is for councillors that are seeking re-election, then go on that. say, you know what, I'm going to redo the CIP because I think the only thing it should do is affordable housing. Well, then do that. But right now, this is what's in front of us, and we must be fair to it, and we must, staff has to look at the criteria that we gave staff, and this is what they have. So in this one, it scored 67. The other ones that are up here in front of us are not being recommended by staff because they didn't meet enough of the criteria. I think we get, and the other thing is, I encourage my colleagues to really understand what the CIP is. It is not a tax handout. It's not a grant system. It's not giving money to developers. That's not what this is. This is something gets built, and then the property taxes are paid on it, and then a rebate happens. No taxpayer money is going to be handed out to the developers over the next 5 years for that to be developed and built. The developer is going to be on the hook for all of that cost, and then the developer is going to pay for it in the first year before they get any of that back. I think it is our duty to understand how this works, because we must be the ones that stand up and inform correctly the narratives when they go wrong out in the community, and so that we can have proper discussions about a program, so we can actually say, oh, you don't agree with that, you think it should all be affordable housing, let's talk about that. It would be much better for our city. It would be much more unifying whenever this topic comes up than to have posters with my face and the word kill. That's what I'm going to say about that. The other thing I want to talk about is that when we're talking about money here, let's get the numbers straight. Currently, the pile of rocks, I used to work downtown and I parked near there, it was called the rock pile. It's called the rock pile. It currently gives taxpayers $11,000 in taxes, $11,000 a year. After this is built, we are going to now get $728,000 in taxes. Even with the rebate, not the handout, not the grant, not the giving the developers money, the tax rebate, which is $573,000, we will still gross $155,000 for the next 10 years. It's $1.5 million. You can have a rock pile, or you can have $1.5 million plus the other people that are living here, plus the economic activity from those people, and all the other goods and services and the jobs that they're bringing to the downtown, or we can have a rock pile. Is it unpopular? Maybe it's unpopular. Again, that's not what's in front of us. Run on it. I'm excited to see your election platforms. One thing I also want to mention is that in the CIP, we don't talk about how much is the unit, how much is the house, how much is the condo, how much is the apartment. And we hear this because it's a market. I'm forever talking about this, and everybody will be happy when I'm gone and can't talk about this anymore, but it's a market. If we had said in Meriton, we're only going to give money to the keg development if you put a McDonald's in that, or a TGI Fridays, not a keg, because a keg, you can only go and you can't get a meal for whatever price. If we started putting these price points on it, then it would fall apart. The hotel that's across the street, that's a boutique hotel. It's not a Howard Johnson's. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other, or we should incentivize it. That's the program. It doesn't look at how much is the price point. If you feel that we should do that in the next one, I encourage you to run on that and get that language in the CIP so it can be much clearer. Once again, we can avoid this conflict that we seem to have over a program that is intended to be better for our community. The last thing I'm going to say is, again, just to go about the stock. Nobody's moving. When there's no housing stock, I can tell you, I have rental properties, you know I do. And if there's, 10 years ago, I've told this story, I would have an apartment for available, it would be 3 weeks, people would come and go, they would see it, that was the market. Now, I have something coming, I don't even have to post it because I know I'm gonna have 15 people looking for, that's stock. There's not enough rental units for people. So like the mayor just said, they get stuck in where they are. If we don't increase the supply, we can't get the market moving. You're gonna see some movement now because interest rates have gone up. So that has changed some things. But unless we have more stock, we have no more places for people to live. So while this might be an unpopular decision for some people, And I understand that. This is what we have in front of us. The developer just said they've come forward now because the timing was right and this program is available. It will send a bad signal to the rest of the province if we are going to shut things like this down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I got Councillor Porter and then Councillor McPherson for batting last. Final.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have so much to say. I guess what I'm going to start with is what's been challenging and frustrating is the fact that we just had a provincial election and people did not seem to be talking about affordable housing at the provincial candidates as much as they do at the lowest tier city councillors that I can see. And as someone who's worked at or with or for every level of government, the only way that a lower tier, bottom tier of a 4-tier municipality can build affordable housing is if we pass an inclusionary zoning bylaw, and we are looking at that, and the only way to do that is to do a massive study, and it's only the City of Toronto who's done this so far. And according to our provincial legislation, inclusionary zoning can only be applied to areas around transit hubs, and you would have to build high density development to get any sort of level of affordable housing. So we will be looking at that. The only other way is to encourage developers to work with not-for-profit sector, or we could leverage our own land and we could start building it ourselves. But where do we get money from? Where does the lowest tier municipality get money to build housing? We actually don't have any revenue streams from other levels of government to do this, and we would have to increase property taxes if we were to move forward with an idea like the Municipal Development Corporation, which is coming forward. We will require a source of revenue if we were going to get into this business, which is something I think that we should do. I looked at the CIP a lot and looked at all of the projects that have been incentivized. And for years, it was extremely popular. It was championed by former councillor Jenny Stevens and Jeff Birch, who are now MPPs, because it revitalized Meriton. Many councillors advocated and pushed for it to be expanded through the whole city, because it used to be just in the downtown and in Meriton, and now it's been expanded to Port Dalhousie. Now this is becoming politicized and a problem. So we've tried to fix this. We all work together on this criteria, and this is as objective as possible. So people talk about the numbers. The numbers are based on a formula, and it's based on the size of the development. So if this was a 7-unit condo that applied for a CIP and got it, like happened in Meriton, which were luxury condos, it would get a percentage of the tax rebate, which we all approved. Because this is a much higher density condo, it's getting more money. We're not just deciding, you get 5 million, you get 4 million like Oprah. It's not the Oprah show. There's some criteria here, and it's based on a rebate. So I just need to say that because the dollar figure is becoming politicized. At the end of the day, there is a net benefit to the taxpayer with this, because we are increasing our assessment, and it is saving taxpayers on average $14 a year. This is even without the spin-off benefits of some of these developments. This is just the basic calculation. We are introducing development charges back again, so there's been talk of firefighters and services. We are rectifying some of the issues of the past, but ultimately bringing in more money. The other thing I wanted to say is we cannot require a developer to put in something like geothermal. Geothermal uses 60 to 75% less energy, and it eliminates the need for burning fossil fuels. This is the very first geothermal project, I think, in any sort of development in St. Catharines, and we need to somehow encourage it, incentivize it. I wish we could require it, but I think that's up to the province to allow us to be able to mandate it. If we shut this down, I don't know what kind of message that sends. Right now, parts of Europe are burning, and this is the hottest summer ever. There's a green roof. This is downtown. The other thing I want to say about multi-use development is it uses 50% less energy than a single-family home. This is without the geothermal. So if I took my family and we moved into a 3-bedroom condo, just without any sort of green energy, we would use 50% less energy. We have a Places to Grow Act, which we've followed, and our official plan is based on this, and we have targets in our downtown. And last I checked, I think it was we were looking at 150 people per hectare by 2031. We don't just say we want to do that for no reason. There are specific environmental reasons why downtown St. Catharines is an urban place to grow. It's near transit. We want to get people using to stop them from using cars by making 15-minute walkable cities. And I can tell you, as somebody who tried to open a food cooperative grocery store and spent 3 years of my life dedicated to putting a 5,000 square foot grocery store downtown, having 700 members, that project failed because we did not have enough density downtown. I learned the hard way that it wasn't going to work. And I got involved in that project because when I had kids, I decided to get rid of one of my cars and thought I could walk downtown and buy diapers, and realized I actually could not buy diapers at the time in the downtown core of St. Catharines. So many reasons why this project would be good for the city. It'll bring in tax revenue. We have projects coming, including inclusionary zoning and the Municipal Development Corporation, that's going to require some investment of time and money to move forward so that we can build affordable housing. I wish there was some other way around it, but I believe that the city should get into this business because it's very difficult to go to this developer and say, we're going to change the CIP, you need to build 30% affordable housing. This project wouldn't happen. We'd be left with a pile of rocks, and we wouldn't have the customer base, the activity downtown. And I got to tell you, as somebody who used to live in Halifax with an urban density of 140 people per kilometer, St. Catharines has 80 in its area. Halifax has 140. We need intensification, we need vibrancy, and we need to do this. So this is based on criteria that we all agreed upon. Some of the previous CIPs that previous councils have approved are now getting built, including the $4 million CIP given to 155 Ontario Street. Back in, I think, 2016, which many of you around the table voted for and approved. Doesn't have a brownfield, but it's, we've got a retirement home, and now we've got a committee of adjustment application for several condos. None of you asked about the price back then. So this is, you have to recognize what you've done in the past and why suddenly this has become politicized. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Porter. Before we go to the last speaker, Councillor McPherson, I just want to acknowledge Councillor Miller. You were correct, the numbers have gone up. Just look at the numbers now. There's 8,392 in Niagara that are on the waiting list, which would equate to about 5,000 in St. Catharines. And just for the public, that represents about 16,000 people. That's quite a number. So I just want to, for the record, and acknowledge that Councillor Miller, you were correct. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, but I do have some comments. And I think that my perspective is probably a lot different than everyone here, as I previously was the chair of the Downtown Association. And when the CIP passed at that point, downtown was hopeful and looked at the opportunities and was hopeful about intensifying. This project is going to be a gateway into the downtown, and this downtown, the city's invested hundreds of millions of dollars in downtown. And over the last 2.5 years, I've watched businesses struggle. I've watched friends struggle. I've had owners, in meetings, we had owners breaking down because they were desperate to get people to come and be downtown. This kind of project will bring people downtown. It has already been made clear by the developer, this wouldn't be happening without the CIP. And this council and past councils have talked a lot about intensifying downtown, and some councilors have even said that downtown's the only place where we can intensify. And it isn't just about the businesses downtown who have struggled. It means jobs in the community. It means that businesses and that people in trades are going to have jobs, and those are jobs that we desperately need. And the other thing is, pandemic has changed how downtowns function. We have fewer and fewer people working downtown. So to support our businesses and have a vibrant downtown, we need residences. There's experts, real estate experts who have been out there, and you can look it up and I can name them from various companies, who have said that it's very unlikely that the working 5 days a week in an office is never going to return. So if we want to have a vibrant downtown, we need residential projects like this. So I'm going to ask my colleagues that when businesses and property owners, for those who choose not to support this, the business owners and property owners who are downtown, most of them don't live downtown, they live across the city. And when residents of downtown also ask why this council, if you deny this application, I'd like you to explain to the business owners and the people who believe in downtown why you chose not to do it. You know, you can explain to the property owners and the business owners who've lived and survived through road construction closures, who took risks investing in downtown when the PAC and Meridian were just an idea. And for every one of those business owners who's had to reinvent themselves during COVID and who has put their life savings into keeping their businesses open, I'd like you to then explain to them why you won't support the CIP that is a CIP for the project that will bring more residents to downtown and, probably more importantly, bring more property tax revenue to the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very robust discussion, and I want to thank all of council for making their opinions known. It has been a very respectful discussion, and I appreciate that. My only final comments would be Mayor Joe McCafferty, and talking to Councillor Dodge today, she had reminded me of this, it was his dream to see a development on that corner. And one of the keystones of that was the installation of a little parkette there. And the vision was that behind that, for those who aren't from St. Catharines and are following, that used to be a Texaco gas station, long time ago. There's some significant contaminations in the soil, but then behind that was a mechanic shop. And this is going back generations, where back in those days with mechanics, what they largely did with the extra fluid.
Boat shops. There was a boat shop there too.
And there was a boat shop there too. These all contributed to the state of the property as it currently is. But I do hope that if council votes to move forward with this project, and if Mr. Waxman and his team follow through on the project, it will be fulfilling a vision by arguably one of the best mayors the city has ever had, who had a passion for St. Catharines, and will be fulfilling a vision of creating something in that space that is truly unique, but also a beacon for others to see our downtown in a new and diverse way. And so, you know, to Mayor Joe, this is a great passing of the torch to our council, and hopefully with this developer, we will finally see a project of the nature that was envisioned so many years ago. So with that, we're going to split the vote, and we're going to vote on the first one first, as requested by Councillor Garcia, and we'll do a roll call for the one that is highlighted in yellow. To the clerk.
So the vote on the BTIF for 7 St. Paul Street West and 7 McGuire Street. Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Porter.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Garcia.
No.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Littleton.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Based on what I've heard, I'm changing my opinion to yes.
Councillor Miller.
No.
Councillor Sorrento.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
No.
And Mayor Sendzik.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Now, Councillor Garcia, I was smiling when you said because you had a bionic no. So the sound wasn't coming through. But we heard the bionic sort of extended no that we often associate with the $6 million man when you hear that. So your bandwidth at your place, it might be a little bit wonky right now, but I apologize. Can you test it? Can you say something right now?
Thank you. I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Yeah.
But I could have unstable internet.
Okay, perfect. The second one is now highlighted in yellow, and this will be for the remainder of the report.
Just quick point of order, the Affordable Housing Reserve, it mentions in here if we rescind this, just what are we spending that money on?
Director Douglas?
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, it is a reserve fund that will be is set aside for affordable housing initiatives at the determination of council.
To the clerk.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Porter.
Yes.
Councillor Littleton.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Garcia.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
And Mayor Sendzik.
Yes.
And that's carried.
And then before we head off into the next report, just to the Director of Planning, for the council and community's expectations, will there be an opportunity for a check-in, or how can we follow along on this project as it moves through the different phases?
Thank you. Through the mayor to council and the public, the next anticipated part of this project would be a site plan application. Once a site plan application is submitted, staff will host an open house for the community to introduce the project before it goes through its decision process.
Okay, thank you very much, Director. Appreciate that. So moving into now motions, we do have a motion on the table, and that is related to the sale of public land, 668, 66B, 66C, Marsdale Drive, brought forward by Councillor Kushner. We do have a delegation prior to the decision, and we have Mr. Lauren Smith and Miss Brenda Audit, who will be delegating to council regarding this motion. Just waiting for the council coordinator to bring them into the room. Okay, there's Mr. Smith.
There, okay, I can't. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. I just can't see you, Mr. Smith.
You can hear me, okay. I apologize for that. The technology gets even worse for me as the evening goes on. Thank you very much for having the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm speaking on behalf of the townhouse owners at 66 Marsdale Drive. And we compose a 3-unit townhouse complex. The depth of our lots are 36.5 meters, and the depth of all the neighboring lots, as far as we know, are at least 36.5 meters in depth. 45.5 meters in depth. the extra 9 meters behind our townhouses are.
So, Mr. Smith,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. Do you have a PowerPoint that you want to share too?
That was supposed to be done for me.
Okay, so I thought you did, so I'm just going to get us caught up to speed.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
If you have it in front of you, just tell us when to move.
It's there now.
Okay, there we go.
Yep, fine. So here I am, just summarizing what I've already said. I'm just speaking for the owners of the townhouses at 66A, B, and C on Marsdale Drive, 3-unit townhouse dwelling. The depth of all our lots for the 3 townhouses are 36.5 meters. The depth of the neighboring lots are 45.5 meters, so a difference of 9 meters. And that 9 meters is part of Town and Country Park, which is a naturalized park area along follows Dix Creek. We would like to buy this land in order to align our backyards with all the adjacent neighboring backyards. I'm hoping the next slide will help you understand a little bit better exactly what I just described. If you look at what's highlighted in pink, the 3 blocks, that represents 66A, 66B, and 66C. The land that we would like to acquire is highlighted in the blue behind the townhouses, so higher up towards the top of the diagram. You can sort of see here where the adjacent lots, 68 and 62, are in fact deeper than the lots associated with our townhouses. So that's basically sort of the lay of the land. The other point is it's not just the townhouse or the properties which are adjacent to our townhouses, it's the remainder of the townhouses on this part of Marsdale. I don't know if there's too much more to say that other than it's a little bit of an anomaly from our point of view, and we're hoping that there's some sort of accommodation could be made. We understand that in the past there have been accommodations made in perhaps, I don't want to say the same, but maybe similar circumstances where we could acquire the park land and then ultimately the funds could be used for the city in other areas. So,
okay.
Yep. Looks like there's questions at the moment.
Yeah, we've got Councillor Townsend with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter. Understanding that there is a significant canopy of trees backing onto this, what is the envisioned plan for the land in question?
Well, I believe there's only one large tree in the 9 meters that we are looking to acquire. And I mean, we certainly would not want to do anything to the tree. It's a beautiful tree. I mean, beyond the 9 meters, there are other trees and brush, etc. But that's really nothing to do with the 9 meters that we're looking at.
Thank you.
Okay, we got Councillor Kushner with a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've mentioned the 2 neighboring properties, which you'd like to be aligned with. What about the other properties on Marsdale in both directions?
Well, I used to live way up towards Glendale on Marsdale, and some of those lots, go right down to the creek. the ones which are in the immediate vicinity of our 3 townhouses, they're all deeper than our lots by this 9-meter distance. So all of them are, all we're looking for is really to have the same size backyard as the other properties.
Okay, and secondly, part of the property behind your home is owned by your neighbor. In fact, the majority of it is owned by your neighbor, and your neighbor, being a good neighbor, is willing to sell it to you?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. No other questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kushner. Councillor Harris?
Joe more or less asked my questions. So just so I'm clear, like, all you're really looking for is to be in line with the existing neighbors. You're willing to keep the existing beautiful tree because it obviously gives you shade in your backyard. And perhaps you'd be willing to put a chain link fence up to have some barrier in between the actual park and your properties?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Garcia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Smith. Fully understand your request and concern. We're always concerned about disposing of parkland, but do I understand that this is, the way I look at your map, is just a jog in from the park, so that land doesn't really lead us anywhere in the park. The park will stay mostly as it is.
Yeah, that's completely correct, sir. It's a completely naturalized park. So there's no access to the public. It essentially would be our backyards.
Right, but I understand. But my point is, even now, if it's just a jog in the park, I don't think people are necessarily going in there because the park goes straight across, right?
Absolutely correct, sir.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Garcia. Councillor Littleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter. I just don't understand this. So the whole thing is you just want to have your backyard in line with your neighbors. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why does it matter?
So that we have access to that space.
So you want a bigger backyard?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Seeing no other further questions, I have a couple questions, Mr. Smith. Just in terms of, now, were you the builder of the townhouses or no?
No, we were not.
So you're the original owner of the townhouses, the first owner of the townhouses?
Correct.
So in terms of when you went to purchase the property, were you aware of the limitations of the backyard?
No.
So you weren't?
Not when we bought the townhouses.
Okay, so, and did you inquire as to why there was a change in the lot line? And was it explained to you by staff why there was a change in the lot line?
Yes, ultimately it was all explained to us. That's correct. I mean, honestly, in the original circumstance, it was completely flummoxing because it just didn't make much sense to us.
Okay, no, and that was just trying to get that. And if the council coordinator could you bring up the memorandum from manager of Realty? There's just another map that I just want to look at because it does, to Mr. Smith, it provides some context. So if Mr. Smith, can you see that on your screen?
I can.
So and I'm again Marsdale 56 and 58. I believe that the green lots there, those are city owned. So according to the memorandum that council received, so I'm just getting clarification. So, and again, it shows that there is some variance, as you've indicated, in terms of the ownership of that line of properties.
Yeah.
And so I point this out because I'll be asking staff of why there is city-owned property that's in 58 and 56, and what the change was when the developer came to go to 66C, B, and A, why there was a change in the property line. So I just wanted to give you a sight line as to some of the questions that I'll be asking around those elements of it. But I just wanted to make sure that you weren't the developer, that you purchased it, and now we're just trying to look at what is the best remedy moving forward. So Councillor Porter has a question. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the owner. So when were the townhouses built? Or when did you move in? It was
2017-18.
okay. So were you aware of like the survey and the size of the lot when you bought the townhouse? Because it made it seem like you were confused that you didn't.
So at the time, it was very confusing. We did not have a survey other than what the builder gave us. We didn't understand anything more at that time.
And so the three were purchased at around the same time, but you didn't have a new survey done?
No, we bought it from the builder.
And so you weren't aware that you didn't have a backyard?
Well, we are aware that we had I think a 10-foot backyard.
Oh, okay, so
But that didn't include the 9 meters that's, under discussion tonight.
Okay, so you knew what your yard was at the time. You were just, now you want to extend your backyard. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I see no further questions. So, Mr. Smith, thank you for your delegation. I just need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Harris. All in favor of receiving the delegation? That's carried. And then we're just going to go now to what would be the motion on the floor. Councillor Kushner has brought forward the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could the motion be posted, please?
It's on the screen now.
Pardon?
It's on the screen right now. Is that the one you're looking at, Councillor? Just want to make sure.
Yes, that is, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to thank staff for assisting in the drafting of the motion. I'll speak to the first part. The land has to be declared surplus before it can be sold. And if it's declared surplus, there are two options from the viewpoint of the city. One is if it's a building lot, then that would be put out on the market. But if it's not a building lot, it's considered to be a remnant, and the neighbors are given the first opportunity to purchase. Now, this property is very unique because 3 years ago, this was one lot. And it was very controversial. The lot was rezoned to permit 3 townhomes. The second part of the motion is that the lots be sold to 66A, B, and C in order to align their backyards with the adjacent neighboring backyards, and also with the rest of the backyards on Marsdale, including the previous property down the street that Mr. Smith owned. So it was only normal when he walked in and he saw the fenced off properties. Their lot was not fenced off, and they just assumed that the backyard would have been aligned with the others. The third part of the motion is that the funds from the sale be allocated to the Parkland Fund for future parkland acquisition. And fourthly, that there be certain conditions. And condition 1 is that building permits be obtained for the decks that were constructed if required under the building code. And I'm not sure if they're required because that depends on the height. Secondly, that a 1.8 meter high black chain link fence or an equivalent fence be installed along the new property line. And finally, that the removal of plant material, the removal of trees not be permitted. And I've taken out plant material because the plant material is 2-3 foot high weeds, and nobody would want to walk through that. And I talked to our planner today, and she had no problem with the removal of the plant material.
Okay, so that's the motion on the floor.
Yes.
In terms of, speaking to the motion, Councillor Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just keep this brief. My concern here is if we consider this, we're opening up that can of worms, that we're setting a precedent for any of those other homes around the area who may want to extend their backyards. So for that reason, I won't be supporting the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sorrento.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe we need to correct the last phrase in the motion. It says that the removal of plant material or trees not be permitted. And I believe Councillor Kushner just said that he was in agreement to have plant material removed. So maybe that should be removed if that's acceptable to Councillor Kushner.
So it's the plant material that needs to be struck, right, Councillor? Correct. And then trees, the removal of trees not be permitted.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff, how would we enforce that a tree couldn't be removed because we don't have a private tree bylaw?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it is part of a significant regional woodlot. There are some enforcement options for us on that side of things through the region and the Conservation Authority.
So just to follow up that, if I can, if it's a significant regional woodlot, but then it's fenced off on private property, what's the applicability to that? Because I actually don't know the answer to that.
Through the mayor, I believe we're still able to enforce. There are many instances in the city where natural conservation areas have extended onto people's private property.
So can I ask a follow-up there? Because along the 12 Mile Creek, which is a natural conservation area, there's delineated backyards that people have now put up a lot of fences. And I would say there's probably been 300 trees cut down in those private properties in which I was told by the NPCA that nothing can be done about them, even though they would be considered significant woodlots. So I'm trying to ascertain how the comment that was just made versus what's happening along the 12 Mile Creek is applicable, because I was told full stop that we can't do anything to prevent taking down of significant trees when it's on private property, even if it's in the ecosystem of the 12 Mile Creek.
We can connect with the MPCA. My experience has been that we have been able to enforce when we've had planning applications on private property, but we can connect and see where they're at with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Porter, sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess through you to the mover, it talks about a building permit. So are we saying that there were decks that were already constructed without a building permit, and did they encroach into the park?
Okay, I don't know. I did see one of the decks, and I think was less than 2 feet in height, and therefore a building permit would not be required. I did not see the deck on the south side, so I don't know if they're constructed on the park's property.
Okay, thank you very much.
But that's why staff recommended this. There would have to be a building permit, and the deck would have to be in compliance with the building code.
Okay, thank you very much. So can I, sorry. This was one of the properties that was intensified, and I think there were like petitions and things like that in the neighborhood, if I remember correctly. I don't know, I'm really struggling with this one because some people we're planning for the future and not just sometimes with people who live in a house today. It's like we're planning into the future. Some people don't need a backyard. We acquired the parkland many years before this. I'm trying to be open-minded, but I also don't want to set a precedent. I'm going to leave my other colleagues to ask questions. I'm still grappling with this one. Thank you.
Councillor Harris and then Councillor Miller.
I was just wondering if I could refer this back to staff and get the answers about the trees before we actually vote on it. And perhaps next council, they can come back with the answer about the trees.
So it is a referral.
Yep.
In addition to that, Councillor Harris, can we have staff come back and provide further detail as to why during the planning agreement for the property line was moved back up to above the bank? Because I think that's, I know it was in the memo, but I think it was a little bit more vague in the memo. If that can come back to council for why the property line was readjusted.
I totally agree with that, and actually explain what type of park it is, because I've been in that. It's literally a path that goes from Marsdale to St. Peter's. So explain exactly how active that park is, because realistically, I think it's a little misleading saying it's an active park.
And then could we get the woodlot, if Manager Josipovic, could we get the woodlot definition? Because I think we need to be clear if trees can and cannot be taken down once they are delineated on private property.
And I wouldn't mind them actually commenting. I believe it's lot number 17, which would probably be, would that be Park Lane that's backing on? It looks to me that it actually covers part of the park. Like, I would like to actually know what is actually included in that park, because does the park break up? Because some of those lots look like they actually cover the entire park.
Okay, so I think, Councillor, if we can include, it may take more than a meeting to get here, but if we can get it in due time, that would be great. So it's a referral.
Thank you.
And if there's any other questions of council, please get them into Director Kitte in advance so that we can include them in the final staff report. Or it's not a report, but a report back is what I'm saying. Okay, motion to refer. Opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. All right, so I've lost my point on this one. Okay, so we're amendments to composition of First Ontario Performing Arts Centre Board. Prior to discussing the motion, Colleen Smith, from Executive Director, First Ontario Performing Arts Centre, will provide some introductory remarks.
Hi, everyone. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm assuming everyone can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the City Clerk's Department for their feedback on our proposal that we put forward by way of a motion to slightly expand and diversify the board of the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre. Wanted to provide just a tiny bit of context to where we are right now in terms of our governance through the board. A reminder that in January of 2020, the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre board was firmly in place as the stewards and of the business of the Performing Arts Centre. Our board came into place and we were then separated as we were previously under the management of the City of St. Catharines. In May of 2020, so a few months later, I was hired as the first CEO, reporting directly to the Board of Directors. The Board of the Performing Arts Centre is responsible for the business of the Performing Arts Centre, and the asset remains under the ownership of the City of St. Catharines. Our board currently, as it exists, has 2 non-voting members, which are city staff members. We also have, as voting members, appointees. Those appointees are 2 members of City Council. They are also 2 members of Brock University. And then we also have, in addition, 7 citizen members. The 7 citizen members are very active within the governance structure of the Performing Arts Centre Board. We have our Board of Directors, we have an Executive Committee, we have Finance and Audit Committee, an HR Committee, a Fund Development Committee, and a Governance and Nominating Committee. So of those 7 citizen members, 6 of them are in charge of one of those various committees. The board has been very active since they have come into place in January of 2020. We have done a lot to really establish this organization in terms of our finances, in terms of our HR programs. Our governance structure has undergone a lot of work, and also moving into the area of fund development, as it will be an important part of our sustainability going forward. So our request to council today is really to look at expanding the citizen membership of the board of directors from 7 members to 9 members. This is really in keeping with many other like organizations across the province when it comes to citizen members representing various areas of constituents of the entity, as well as those who are charged with doing a lot of the work related to the various committees. The second part of our request is really on expanding the membership of the board of the FirstOntario PAC to areas outside of the city of St. Catharines. So our request is to look at up to 2 citizen members of 9 that would be potentially from outside of the city. As a comparison, from 2019 to 2022, when we looked at the ticket buyers for PAC-specific performances, up to 40% of ticket buyers were actually residing outside of the city of St. Catharines. So as we look to strengthen our organization, as we look to build audiences, as well as supporters of the PAC from outside of the city of St. Catharines, it always helps to have people living in different communities so that they can really draw on resources from their areas in order to help the PAC and its sustainability. So again, that is our request today. We're just looking for 2 simple things. We're looking at expanding the board by 2 members and then allowing a total representation of our citizen members of up to 2 being residing outside of the city of St. Catharines. We also have with us today the chair of our board of directors, Mario Di Davidas, and I just would ask Mario to follow up with a few points as well from his perspective on our current request.
Thanks, Colleen, and evening, everyone. I think Colleen did a great job at just summarizing kind of where we are on the board. The only other item I would mention is just around kind of the journey of this board. I've been lucky enough to been on it since the start, and it's been it's really a startup organization that went into an intermunicipal board, and you could see that in terms of like the evolution of our committees and the challenges we've had to deal with over the last few years with pandemic. And that's just a lot to carry on a volunteer board when, she articulated how many are appointed members, whether it's through council or through Brock. That leads a lot of lifting for your average citizen like myself and, some of the other ones. So I think we've had a couple that have expressed some interest that they're reached the end of their term, and, we're at the same time, trying to innovate and grow kind of our capacity, and particularly around fundraising. So that is the other kind of stem of the request. But nothing really more to add than Colleen touched on. I'm very appreciative of all of council's kind of commitment over the years, in particular with Councillor Garcia and Councillor Townsend. Have served the council very well with their insight and their energy and their presence. So sincere gratitude to those 2 in particular.
Thank you, Director Smith and Chair Dedivides. Now look around the horseshoe. I have Councillor Porter for a comment, please. Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Chair Sorrento. Almost called you Mr. Mayor. My question is to both Mr. Dedivides and Ms. Smith. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for all of your work and your efforts. Thank you, Mario, for chairing this startup board. And Colleen, I saw you downtown on Saturday. There was people had the best time ever outside in the street. So thank you for working with the downtown BIA and bringing life back to our city. I appreciate it. My first question is, why wouldn't you ask for 11? Just to give you the option if you needed to have 11. like if I think of this board and who needs to be on it, and the fact that you mandate 2 city councilors, not to denigrate city councilors, but you might not know, and no offense to my colleagues, but you might not get the knowledge or expertise that you need. You'll get the council input, but you just may not get the kind of governance input that you need or the knowledge around running a performing arts center. Why wouldn't you ask for 11? You could leave it at 9, but there's also turnover on boards, and sometimes you can lose a whole bunch of board members all at once, and you lose a lot of knowledge.
Thank you very much, and through the chair. That's a really great question. As we worked with the clerk's department, we wanted to do so in a reasonable manner, and so we looked at increasing by 2. Certainly, it's not a matter of putting people on a board. It's about finding the right people, and also, should we be so fortunate to find a number of individuals who meet the criteria and are really interested and have a connection to the PAC, up to 11 would indeed be beneficial to us. It was just at this moment in time, we felt that the up to 9 would be the appropriate next step. I asked Mario to comment on this as well. Again, for me, it's not about the number of people, it's about finding the right people and ensuring that we have adequate representation for our future and for our sustainability. So Mario, I would ask you to comment.
Yeah, I think it's also just an open, like, do you come out and request for more and then hope to get less, or do you come out and ask for less and hope to get what you want? So we know the bare minimum that we did require was the 2. So we felt comfortable. Again, to note the kind of infancy of this board, this is just the second time that we came to council with a request like this. So I think we're very much authentically just kind of feeling out that process as well. But I think it's a sound suggestion if there was an appetite for that as well.
I personally don't think that 9 is enough, just given who you have to put on this board. It just really limits you, and it's actually still a bit of a risk. And if you could go up to 11, you could be comfortable at 9. But if someone, amazing board member, came forward, or you knew somebody was going to leave, you better do succession planning by leaving it or by putting it up to 11. So I would like to, at some point, Chair, I would like to make an amendment that this should go up to 11. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. And at the excuse me. And at the appropriate time, I've got a bit of a speakers list here. At the appropriate time, Clerk, I'll look to you to add Councillor Porter's amendment, because I don't think we have a mover yet. So I have Councillor Garcia up next, and Councillor Townsend. Councillor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the clerk knows that I'm the mover and Councillor Townsend is the seconder, and that was sent in quite a while back. First of all, a couple of comments on the request in general. I think the CEO and the chair have already covered it very well. I just wanted to support what they said by saying I take my role on this board very seriously, and it can be a lot of work. I myself, I'm already on the Finance and Audit Committee. I'm on the Governance and Nominations Committee, and I'm on the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force. That's as well as the board meetings. So certainly the expansion of the board makes sense. I'm not sure whether we should go higher than the 9. I think we can always, the council is always very reasonable and understands what the PAC's needs are. So my sense is that the board decided on 9 and that we would try the 9. And if we find that that is not sufficient, that we can always come back. As Colleen said, it is a difficult task to find the right people. It's not just making it so many, but finding the right people with the right skills and the right background. And that's what the Governance and Nomination Committee, which, by the way, we're lucky enough to have former CAO Shelley Kemness the chair, is one of their tasks that they are working on. So that is a point in support of the addition, and also to emphasize that I believe that St. Catharines as a whole is becoming the arts and cultural center of the region. And I keep hearing from people in different municipalities that they look forward to coming to St. Catharines to different arts and cultural events. And obviously the PAC is at the center of that. So I think that having a more regional appeal by having a couple of members from elsewhere in the region that, as the chair said, could also help us with the fund development and fundraising would be very helpful. So obviously I'm very much in support of this, and the whole board was in very much support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garcia. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Chair Sorrento, and through you, thank you to Director Smith and to Chair Mario Didavidas for being here tonight. I am in support of increasing that number to a max of 11. There's no sense, I don't think, of going out with 9 today and then coming back and asking for 11. Over the last 2 years, we have been working very diligently at the PAC, coming up with new committees. There are 4 committees. Finance and audit, governance, human resources. So there's a lot of subcommittees that need to have people put on them. And this is one of the reasons why we are coming forward and asking this. In specific, my favorite one, which I sit on, the Fund Development Committee, the more people you have on there asking the community for money to support the arts, the better, in my opinion. But I think that, yeah, I would be in full support of up to 11 max. And then the PAC can make the decision as to how many they want to have at the end of the day. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands. Now, in case I've missed anybody, are there any councillors that wish to speak? Oh, apologies. I have Councillor Miller.
I just want to correct. I'm sure Councillor Porras is an oversight she meant to say, because it's Performing Arts Center that we want to, like Spinal Tap, turn it up to 11.
Yeah. Are there any, thank you, Councillor Miller. Are there any other councillors that want to speak? Hands up? Okay. Then as the chair, I guess I get the last say. I just want to recognize the Director Smith and her tremendous team, our city staff, the board, Chair Didavidas, the tremendous members, our councillors that served there, previous council that had the vision, our staff, and support from the community to build such a beautiful center that's helping to revitalize our beautiful downtown. A lot of work to be done, but that's absolutely a stunning facility, so well done. Now I see Councillor Williamson, your hand's up. It's all good. Go ahead, Councillor Wellington.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. The motion still says to a maximum of 9. I'm not sure if the mover accepted the 11 number or not.
I'll look to the clerk and to the mover.
I'll look to Councillor Garcia as the mover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will accept that as friendly. I believe that the comments we heard from the chair and from CEO Smith, and I wanted to point out that we keep calling her director, but the board did appoint her CEO of the PAC. If they have no concerns about that, I will certainly accept that as friendly.
So, CEO Smith, Chair Didavidas, any concerns?
Yeah, no, I think we're very grateful for that opportunity. So thank you, Councillor Porter, for putting it forward, and everyone for supporting it. My only request is just to clarify that those 4 would also have the opportunity to come from the entire region, just to follow suit with the first request in terms of the geographical location.
Thank you, Chair Didavidas, and to the mover, is that okay with you? Should we have that written into the motion, Councillor Garcia?
Yes, I think that makes sense, Mr. Chair, but it does have to be written in because that's not the way it reads right now. So, so to permit up to 4 citizen members, then in the last paragraph. Thank you for that.
He's
Mr.
got
Chair.
it. Okay, thank you, Councillor. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Garcia, seconded by Councillor Townsend. And so Clerk Sullivan, would you be kind enough to call the roll, please?
Councillor Garcia,
Yes.
Councillor Townsend,
Yes.
Councillor Dodge,
Yes.
Councillor Kushner,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Porter,
Yes.
Councillor Williamson,
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento. No, we'll go with Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Littleton,
Yes.
and Councillor Sorrento.
A hearty yes.
And that's carried.
Great. Good job.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sorrento, for doing that. Appreciate it. No calls for notices of motion. If there are any, please make sure you get them into council for the August 8th meeting. And we will now go look at the committee and task force minutes, which have been provided and filed. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Sorrento. All in favor, show of hands. We are going to go into closed session. There are 2 items in closed session that need to be discussed. The clerk will take us through the 2 property matters and then read a disclaimer. At that point, I'll need a mover and a seconder to go to closed session. So I'll need a mover and a seconder, Councillor Sorrento, Councillor Littleton. And before we have the vote, I'll turn it over to the clerk and then she'll call the question.
So the reason to go on camera today is, number 1 is a property matter acquisition, closed session pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, Section 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. That's regarding Port Dalhousie Piers and Harbour lands, file number 22.006. And the second item is property matter. It's a lease. It's closed session pursuant to Municipal Act Section 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and that's regarding the Junior B Falcons lease at Seymour-Hannah Sports and Entertainment Center, Realty file number 96.40A. By attending the closed session, each member acknowledges that their obligations under the Code of Conduct, including responsibilities related to confidentiality of closed session materials and discussions, remain the same as if they were physically present at the meeting. This includes that members are not permitted to record the proceedings and must ensure that no other person can see or hear any confidential deliberations taking place.
Show of hands to go on camera. Carried. All right, welcome back from the in-camera session. We have a motion. The first one is the property matter acquisition, Port Dalhousie, Piers and Harbour lands, moved by Councillor Williamson, seconded by Councillor Garcia. And the council approved the staff recommendation contained in the report regarding a proposed acquisition, and that a further 100,000 be set aside for the Port Dalhousie Pier Harbour area reserve be included in the 2023 operating budget for council's consideration. So I'll look to the clerk to call a question.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Littleton?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
No.
Councillor Sorrento?
Nope.
Mayor Sendzik?
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay, 2.2 is a property matter, a lease for the Junior B Falcons at the Seymour-Hannah Sports and Entertainment Center, Realty file 96408, and that council approved the staff recommendation contained in the report with council direction as provided regarding a property lease, Realty file 96440A, and that early budget approval of $150,000 in the 2023 capital budget for the renovation of the dressing rooms. If we can strike out the retail space, so strike that part out, the retail space, and it's just pertaining to the dressing rooms in the amount of $150,000 be detailed in the financial implications of this report. And this is moved by Councillor Williamson, seconded by Councillor Sorrento. Other way around, Councillor Sorrento moved it, seconded by Councillor Williamson.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, with regards to that retail space, there will be, that is for the medical room and the coach's office.
Oh, my apologies. I thought it pertained to something else. Okay, unstrike that. Okay, so I look to the clerk to call the question.
Councillor Sorrento?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Harris is not here. Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Littleton?
No.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Mayor Sendzik?
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay, reading of the bylaws, listed on the council agenda, A through N, save and except for M.
That's correct.
Be read a first time, kind of considered and passed, and they'd be signed and executed by the mayor and the clerk. I need a motion for that. Councillor Townsend, seconded by Councillor Littleton, and all in favor? That's carried, and that the additional bylaws A and B be read a first time, considered and passed, and these are pertaining to the Department of Ocean Fisheries and the Piers. The other one is pertaining to the St. Catharines Junior B Hockey Club, St. Catharines Falcons. Again, these are the bylaws. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Sorrento, second by Councillor Townsend. All in favor? Those opposed? Carried. And adjournment. This will be the no further business of council. This meeting be adjourned. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Kushner. And all in favor. The next council meeting is August 8th, and look forward to seeing as many people as possible at the opening of the Canada Games and all the other events that are taking place in St. Catharines. Take care. Have a great night.